3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Police Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to what is another week and a Monday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course, streaming live on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to jump on in. That's 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Lindsay Rhodes is going to join us. She's an NFL reporter for Sumer Sports, so she will recap the Combine. She was out in Indianapolis all of last week. That will be happening an hour from now. Also, last week on my vacation, and it's good to be back, I did a little interview with Michael Chandler, who has a big fight, UFC 314, coming up in about 6 weeks, and he'll be going up against Paddy Pimblett, so we'll play that for you at 4:40 p.m. Eastern Time, 1:40 p.m. Pacific today. And it's good to be back in the studio. We got 5 shows this week after I spent a few days in Florida. where I got a lot of sun, I ate a lot of food, and I also did a lot of walking. So I got in on Wednesday morning, and when I got in on Wednesday, I went for like a 2-mile walk to a bagel place that I like going to down in Florida. It's like a 2-mile walk from my grandmother's house. Then I walked back, so got 4 miles in there. Then I sat my fat ass down at the pool, soaked in the sun, right? Went into the pool. And then on Wednesday night, I went to dinner. I met up with Josh Appel, who used to be the in-stadium announcer for the Miami Marlins. And I also had some dinner with Mark Hochman, who does a great job on Hochman and Crowder on 560 WQAM. So good to have a few drinks, have some good food with those guys. Then Thursday, I got up. I went from Boca to Jupiter, met up with one of my best friends. Then we linked up together, drove from Jupiter to Port St. Lucie. And I told Stu like 2 weeks ago, I'm not a big spring training guy. And then my friend said, we're going to spring training. So I said, okay, why not? Now, no Juan Soto in the lineup, no Francisco Lindor. We were 4 rows off the plate, which was awesome. Little small stadium, but cool stadium in Port St. Lucie. I think the last time I was there, and they've renovated it, I must have been 12 or 13 years old. So it's been a long, long time since I've been to Port St. Lucie. We're walking into the stadium, and Doc Gooden was there. And then I get to my seats, and right, I'm with my best friend, his stepfather, and his stepfather's best friend. And they go, I'm pretty sure that's Jerry Seinfeld sitting 3-4 rows in front of us. So he was in a baseball cap, right? Was kind of slouching down in the seats. So I couldn't really tell if it was Jerry Seinfeld, but I go, yeah, it could be. And then you heard an entire section behind us start chanting as if he was Jerry Springer, Jerry, Jerry, Jerry. And he stood up and he gave a little wave and a little tip of the cap to the fans. And the Mets have a player named Jose Siri. And when Jose Siri was on deck, I said to my buddy, I go, how many insufferable, hey Siri jokes are there going to be? And then the guy in front of us, I kid you not, 30 seconds after I said it, said, hey Siri, who's on deck? And then the whole section, right, gave a laugh because it is a funny line. And my Siri just went off on my phone, which I should have expected that. Probably Stu and Samter Series also went off as well. And Jerry Seinfeld was even laughing. And the guy screamed out, yeah, Jerry, you're probably upset you couldn't think of that one. He turned around and he goes, that was good stuff. So that was a little interaction that our section had with Jerry Seinfeld. I probably left in about the 7th inning or so. You know, you're not staying for all these baseball games. After like 3-4 innings, you start to get to these prospects and these no-name players, and it's like, okay, enough is enough. So we drove on back, got back to Jupiter, then finished my drive from Jupiter to Boca. And that Thursday night, I went out for with dinner with some family. You know, my aunt, my uncle live in Florida now, my grandma as well. My mom and dad were down there. So we went out for dinner, had, some Italian food, which was good. And then Friday was another big eating day. Huge eating day. I met my agent, Mark Lepselter, for lunch at the Boca Raton Hotel, which has a Del's in it. So I had a whitefish, I had bacon, I had a hash brown, and I also had a very good sesame bagel, and obviously a ton of coffee. So we dined at Del's, which is very, very good. And then I ended up driving to Miami later that night. And by the way, Stu, you know this, Wawa. Now, I know Wawa from Philadelphia. I know they have a Wawa down, a bunch of Wawas down in Florida. So that was awesome. So I stopped on my way down to Miami, and I saw Wawa. I got right off the road because they have a bunch of them on 95. And I said, okay, let me go get another coffee because I was having a late dinner. It was an 8 p.m. dinner. And I went to one of my favorite restaurants ever on Friday evening, Joe Stone Crab. And oh boy, me and my buddy, Justin, who I've known since sleepaway camp, we had dinner there. We ate like pigs. Absolute pigs. They have a tomato, spinach, and cheese dish. They have a lobster mac and cheese dish. They have coconut shrimp, which is absolutely delicious. We did more hash browns. The hash browns at lunch were enough, so we did hash browns for dinner too. We got a jumbo and a half order of the stone crabs, which are just sensational, and a few other things too. And then for dessert, they have their famous key lime pie, which I love. And he then said to me, and my buddy, his cousin is now, I think he's the COO of the restaurant now. And he said they added a new dessert menu item. And I'm like, okay, we gotta try this dessert menu item. It was a s'mores pie. This thing was delicious. Absolutely delicious. So ended up then driving home after dinner, which I thought I was going to pop on the ride home. And then Saturday, what did I do Saturday? Oh, I went golfing. My other uncle also lives in Florida. So my dad and I, we met up with my dad's friends, and we ended up golfing. We played 18, then got back in the car, then went out for some other dinner Saturday, got up Sunday, and then made my way back to New York. So that was basically the eating, sunshine, pool, Florida vacation, and that's why I was out on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, but now we're back for another week of shows. And while I was out, a lot happened in the NFL world. So you have Deebo Samuel getting traded to the Commanders. We'll get into that. T. Higgins, literally just 30 minutes ago, got tagged by the Cincinnati Bengals. You have LeBron James fighting reporters, and then one of our own reaching out to LeBron James's camp, which we'll get into later on in the program. And oh yeah, by the way, you had the Matthew Stafford stuff get rectified, which anyone listening to this show, I told you from the start, I never thought that Matthew Stafford was going to get traded, and Matthew Stafford was going to check in elsewhere and still realize that the Rams were his best destination. But what we do is, I always say, usually when you get into start another week, and whenever we talk football, you're either talking about a quarterback or you're talking about a head coach. And we're going to start today's show with the quarterbacks, because coming off the combine, you know, this is not a deep quarterback draft class, but I still expect the two quarterbacks, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, to go within the first three picks. And heading into the combine, I thought that Cam Ward was going to go 1. I wasn't sure what the Browns were going to do, but I've said, at the worst case scenario, one of the quarterbacks, right, Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, and I've leaned and I said that it's going to be Cam, is going to go 1 or 2. And then at the absolute latest, I thought Shedeur Sanders would go 3. Well, after the combine, it would not shock me if the quarterbacks go 1, 2 right off the board, right out of the gate. Now, I may be in the minority in saying that. I just checked a Ryan Wilson latest mock draft on CBS Sports, and he has Cam Ward going 1, Abdul Carter still going 2. The Giants then passing up on a quarterback. He has them taking Travis Hunter in at 3. Kelvin Banks, the offensive tackle from Texas, going to the Pats at 4. Mason Graham going to the Jaguars at 5. And he still has, this is post-combine mock draft, Ryan Wilson, do the Shedeur Sanders, going in at number 6 to the Las Vegas Raiders. But when I was, checking in with the combine and also following the rumors, I do ultimately believe, whether it's the Tennessee or not, that Cam Ward's going to be the number 1 overall pick. And I think Tennessee has a decision to make. Do you take Cam Ward at number 1? And does Mike Borgonzi in year 1, right, a few weeks into the job, does he call his shot on who his franchise quarterback is going to be? And he takes his first crack at it. Does he do that with the number 1 overall pick? Or do you trade back? And I think if you're trading back, the farthest you're going to trade back is to either 2 or 3. Like if Cleveland wants that quarterback, Cam Ward, if that's perceived to be number 1 quarterback in this draft, which now it is, all right, maybe Cleveland moves up from 2 to 1, Tennessee falls back to 1, then they could obviously still get either Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter if they want to pass on a quarterback. Or they could still fall all the way to 3, right? Let's say the Giants move up to 1, they get Cam Ward, and then maybe Cleveland takes a Shedeur Sanders at 2, but then even if Cleveland takes Abdul Carter, then at 3, you could sit there and maybe still get your quarterback in Shedeur Sanders, or you could go take Travis Hunter. So those are the options, and that's a decision that I think the Tennessee Titans have to make. And I think you could even dumb it down and make it even easier. It's either you take Cam Ward or you take the quarterback at 1, or you trade down to 2 or 3, and that's the farthest you're going is 3, to get either Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, and then pick up some return in exchange for moving down a few spots. But then I read a report from Connor Hughes, who covers the NFL, the Jets, the Giants, and the entire league for SNY. And Connor Hughes said he talked to a general manager that is not associated with the New York Giants or the Tennessee Titans. And he said if the Giants were to move up from 3 to 1, it would be a swap of first-round picks. So, right, 1 and 3 this year, that would be the swap. And then it probably would only cost 2 additional third-round picks. And he says if there becomes a bidding war, where then Cleveland wants to move up, maybe at most the Giants would have to swap the first-round picks this year, right? So the Giants move up to 1, Tennessee would fall back to 3, And then maybe instead of giving 2 third-round picks, you'd have to give a second and a third. And when I heard that, and really the genesis of the report was swap ones and then probably only have to give 2 additional 3s, I don't think those results are rich enough where if I'm Tennessee, and hey, if you don't love the quarterback, don't take the quarterback. But if I was Mike Borgonzi and all I'm going to get back is to fall down to 3, the Giants move up to 1, and probably only 2 additional third-round picks, I think you just call your shot and you just take the quarterback in Cam Ward at 1. So since the Combine, here's where I'm at. I really do believe one way or another, whether it's Tennessee or it's Cleveland or it's the Giants, Cam Ward's going to be the first overall pick in the draft. Either Tennessee's going to keep the pick and take him, or they'll fall back a slot or 2. Cleveland or the Giants will come up. But still something, and it's funny, because he's the biggest NFL insider that we have. However, with that being said, I feel as if I'm the only one that heard what he said. Now, it wasn't a report, but Adam Schefter last week said it, and I've heard him double down on it since, and it wasn't a report, it was just an opinion. And that's sometimes the tough things with insiders, is we look at everything as a report, but sometimes they're just giving an opinion, but their opinions, I don't think Adam Schefter's trying to be a hot take artist. He has informed opinions. So Adam Schefter said it on his podcast. I've also heard him say it again because I watched his entire interview with Barstool Sports with Part of My Take, and he keeps on saying, out of all the uncertainty in this draft, the number one thing that he's most confident in, and this is the way that he said it, the thing he's most confident in is that Cleveland's going to use their first-round pick on a quarterback. So maybe some people hear that, and they say, oh, well, then Cleveland's going to trade back, and then they'll take a quarterback later on in the first round, or maybe they'll trade back up into late of the first round, and they'll get one of these other quarterbacks that are available, right? But I hear that, and I say, well, at number 2, it doesn't matter who's going at 1. Even if Cam Ward goes 1, then if Schefter's saying, and just because Schefter says it doesn't mean it's going to happen, but that's a pretty big opinion, that he said the number one thing he's most confident in is that Cleveland's going to take a quarterback. So if Cleveland's definitely going to take a quarterback, is there a chance that Tennessee passes on a quarterback at 1? I guess. But I don't think Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter are going to be the first overall pick in the draft. I think it's going to be Cam Ward. So if Cleveland's not moving up to 1, which Cleveland could trade up to 1 and get Cam Ward, but if they don't, and let's say the Giants trade up to 1 or Tennessee just says, bleep it, we'll take a quarterback ourselves in Cam Ward, then I take that and I hear that the Cleveland Browns are going to take Shedeur Sanders in at number 2. So that's what I thought after this Combine. But then I've read a bunch of mock drafts today, whether it's Lance Zierlein, whether it's Ryan Wilson, and none of them, right? The guys that do mock drafts all the time, none of them have Cam Ward going 1 and Shedeur Sanders going 2. However, with that being said, and some of them don't even have like the Ryan Wilson mock draft, right? He has Cam Ward going 1, but he doesn't have Shedeur Sanders going till 6. I feel pretty damn good thinking about this, that in all likelihood, we're going to see Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, and Shedeur at the absolute latest go 3. I really think that, because I'm in the line of thinking that Cam Ward is going 1. So if Cam Ward goes 1, regardless of who he goes to, is Cleveland and the Giants, are they going to find a way to pass up on Shedeur Sanders? I don't think so. I guess you could make the case if Cam Ward goes 1, Cleveland goes against Schefter, they pass on a quarterback, and then let's say the Giants trade, goes they're going to make their intentions good to go sign Aaron Rodgers. Just because you bring in Aaron Rodgers doesn't mean you need to pass up on a quarterback. So I guess at the absolute latest, like Zach, if you're wrong, then you do have the buffer spot of the Raiders, knowing Brady loves Shedeur, that I don't think the Raiders would pass up on Shedeur Sanders at 6. But what I tend to learn here, even in the years where quarterbacks aren't viewed that deep, and Kenny Pickett was the outlier, the quarterbacks still go early. Like Anthony Richardson should have never been the 4th overall pick, and he ended up being the 4th overall pick. You had 3 quarterbacks go in the first 4 picks last year. Even last year when we knew quarterbacks were going to fly off the board, none of us had 6 going in the first 12 picks, right? Like you knew that Caleb and Jaden and Drake were going to fly off the board, but you didn't know Michael Penix was going to go 8. You didn't know J.J. McCarthy was going to go 10 and then Bo Nix. No one had him going 12. So I still believe, even though this isn't a deep quarterback draft class, we'll still see the first 3 picks and maybe even the first 2 picks of the draft having 2 quarterbacks go off the board. And right now, all I feel comfortable in saying is that Cam Ward will be going number 1, whether it's the Tennessee, Cleveland, or the Giants, depending if there's a trade. But Cam Ward will be the first pick. And then Shador will either then go 2 or 3. I have a tough time if the Giants don't trade up to 1 and Shador is still on the board at 3, seeing the Giants go pass on Shador Sanders. That's just the way that I feel about it. All right, here is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. First 17 minutes in the book. We'll take a break. When we come on back, let's react to T. Higgins getting tagged. We will discuss Deebo Samuel getting traded to the Washington Commanders. Also, is DK Metcalf going to be on the move? And I'll issue a little warning here. I'm going to issue a warning to Devontae Adams. And I said this the last time he got dealt, and I'll say it again. And maybe this time, I'm not expecting him to respond, but maybe this time he'll actually listen. So we'll get into the receivers when we come on back. If you want to jump on in on where you think Cam Ward or Sanders are going to be going, 855-212-4227. It is the Zach Gelb Show.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
Alrighty, let's start with the latest news. And this was a little over 40 minutes ago, let's say. Adam Schefter, the Cincinnati Bengals, have placed the $26.2 million franchise tag on wide receiver T. Higgins. This marks the second straight year that the Bengals have used their franchise tag on Higgins. So here's my question. Are you going to get a long-term deal done? Because we won't find out the answer to that potentially until July 15th. Because that's the deadline. July 15th is the last day a tagged player can reach a long-term extension with the team that tagged him before, if you're going to play for this upcoming season, that you're going to play on the tag or you're going to play on that new deal. So my question becomes, what happens, and this is a question for T. Higgins, and we won't find out the answer yet because why would T. Higgins answer it right now? But what happens if you don't reach a long-term agreement from now until July 15th? Will you play this year on the franchise tag again, knowing that you're going to get $26.2 million, or will you threaten to sit out and demand to get traded somewhere else where one of these teams that trades for T. Higgins knows that if you're going to, then you got to figure out what the contract is that he's going to want before you trade future resources for him? So that's just something to contemplate. And I kind of hope that Cincinnati, selfishly as a Patriot fan, right? I hope that Abdul Carter falls in the draft with this stress reaction that he has. I also hope that T. Higgins tells the Cincinnati Bengals to go pound sand, that he doesn't want to get a deal done, and both those players wind up in New England. That would be the perfect offseason for your boy if the Patriots at 4 could get Abdul Carter and then they could find a way to orchestrate a trade and then go pay T. Higgins. But I got to do a job here. And when I do a job here, I'm starting to think that Abdul Carter isn't going to be available at 4. There's a chance if you get 2 quarterbacks going in the top 3 and then Travis Hunter's the first non-quarterback taken, instead of Abdul Carter. But I think Abdul Carter's the best player, period, in this draft. The odds may have gone up from him being available at 4 with this injury. But since there's not going to be a surgery required yet, that I would probably think that Abdul Carter's going in the first 3 picks. So you look at T. Higgins, the air kind of went out of that balloon where it's not totally out, but you feel like, right, most of the toothpaste is out of the tube right now with the idea of T. Higgins winding up to the Patriots. But there's that hope of, okay, the Bengals can't get a deal done. T. Higgins tells the Bengals to go pound sand, and the Patriots go, they give him the contract and they trade for him. But I look at T. Higgins, this is why I think it's going to get hairy. And I don't think it's going to be as smooth as they would like it to be. Number one, he just got tagged last year. So this is now a back-to-back offseason issue. Also, number 2, the Bengals also need to worry about Trey Hendrickson and also, more importantly, Jamar Chase. So my question to the Bengals, where I think Joe Burrow has made it clear he wants them to be like the Eagles, right, where you take care of A.J. Brown and you take care of Devontae Smith, and that's just the state of the league where it's a pass-heavy league, so you basically need 2 number 1 wide receivers, right? Because T. Higgins go elsewhere and he can get number 1 wide receiver money. But my question for the Bengals is, who do they intend to get done first? Because if you get Jamar Chase's contract done first, then what does T. Higgins want? Does T. Higgins, right, who's a very good wide receiver, I'm not going to call him great, but he's very good, and he could be a number one on other teams. Does he say to the Bengals, right, as we see with quarterbacks all the time, it doesn't matter if you think I'm just very good, I deserve top-of-the-line money. And if that's the case, there's no way that you could get Jamar Chase's contract squared away first and then have to pay T. Higgins. But if you do get Jamar Chase's contract taken care of first and T. Higgins is being reasonable, it sets what the cap is, but we still don't know what the floor is. Because if, let's say, Jamar Chase wants to blow past Justin Jefferson, I don't know if he does, but Justin Jefferson is getting paid $35 million a year. So if Jamar Chase just wants to beat Jettas and he takes $36 million a deal, I don't think that impacts T. Higgins that much. But let's just say Jamar Chase blows past Justin Jefferson, gets $40 million a year. Doesn't the price then also go up for T. Higgins because the ceiling is just higher on what the top-of-the-line wide receivers make? Now, I'm not thinking that T. Higgins is going to get $40 million a year, but you look at T. Higgins right now. Let's say if Jamar Chase wasn't on the Bengals, or if Jamar Chase, wasn't up for a new contract. You're looking at the top-of-the-line receiver right now making $35 million a year in Justin Jefferson. After that, CeeDee Lamb makes $34 million a year. A.J. Brown makes $32. Amon-Ra St. Brown makes $30. Tyreek Hill makes $30. Brandon Ayuk makes $30. Jalen Waddle makes $28. Devontae Adams makes $28. And DJ Moore makes $27.5. Well, I can tell you this. I'd be very surprised if the Bengals get a deal done with T. Higgins and it's below or does not even exceed what DJ Moore got. Right? DJ Moore makes $27.5 million a year. Now, you could argue that you like DJ Moore better than T. Higgins, but I don't think you're getting that much of a discount. Like, if he's playing on the tag again this year, and the tag again this year is $26.2 million, I don't think T. Higgins is signing a deal that only pays him $27.5 million a year. I don't. Now, I think he could beat out Devontae Adams. I think he could beat out Jalen Waddle. And isn't the Brandon Ayuk situation kind of similar? Where you had, I know they just traded Deebo Samuel, but at the time, they had two really talented wide receivers, and I thought Brandon Ayuk was the better natural wide receiver. Just Deebo Samuel did more, and I even said last year they were going to get the deal done with Ayuk and they were going to trade Deebo Samuel a year from now. That was my prediction last year. So I look for T. Higgins, if he wants to be reasonable, and it would still make him a top 1, 2, 3, 4, and basically it'd make him a top 5 wide receiver because Ayuk, Hill, and Amon-Ra St. Brown are all pretty much making $30 million a year. I think you kind of start with him getting $30 million a year. That's where I think you got to start. Because, could he ask to beat A.J. Brown at $32 million or CeeDee Lamb at $34 million? He's not better than those guys, but he could ask for it, and maybe he gets it. But the thing to watch and why almost Cincinnati has to get T. Higgins done first is because that's the market right now. Right? And the market right now, you look at it, and I think any natural person would just kind of say normal person, how about 4 years of $120? 4 years of, I don't know what the guarantees would be, but 4 years of $120, pretty much a Brandon Ayuk deal. If you want to, maybe we'll give you a $123 if you want to get yourself up there a little bit more on the list incrementally. Like, maybe, okay, fine. But I think anywhere in that ballpark, 4 for a $120 for T. Higgins is fair. However, if Jamar Chase then knocks this out of the park and gets a deal first, and let's say he makes $40 million a year, I think T. Higgins may be able to ask for a little bit more money because you just paid, Jamar Chase $40 million a year. I know Jamar Chase is better, but I'm still a very talented wide receiver. Then is $30 million and Jamar Chase is making $10 more million a year. Is that something that T. Higgins is going to take? So that's why if I'm the Bengals, even though Jamar Chase is more important, I would hammer out the deal with T. Higgins first and then worrying about how much money that you're going to end up paying Jamar Chase later. That's what I would do. But we'll see if they're going to be able to get a long-term deal done. And the Bengals, they have a chance to really change the perception about their franchise. Because for years, right, they were viewed as a cheap organization. They used to make their players pay for the Gatorade and the water in the facility. You know, if you needed a new jock strap, you used to have to return your old one. I know we're going back like 15, 20 years, but that cheap perception and the fact that they haven't got either Jamar Chase or T. Higgins taken care of yet is still existent. But will you have enough money to then shape out the rest of your roster and build the rest of your roster? Because you also need to take care of Trey Hendrickson, who, by the way, just led the league in sacks this past year. So I do think Jamar Chase's contract will get taken care of. And then I do believe another deal will get done. But can you get all three done in Trey Hendrickson, in Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins? And the salary cap did go up this year. So maybe you have a little bit more wiggle room where you could afford those three monster contracts. Plus, you already paid Joe Burrow. And then you can still shape out and build out the rest of your roster as you still have a Super Bowl window that is open. So that's on the T. Higgins front. Now, what we saw happen over the weekend, Deebo Samuel getting traded for a 5th-round pick, I thought was a very good move by the Washington Commanders. It's low risk, it's high reward. And you get a complimentary piece for Terry McLaurin at the wide receiver position that could even open up more of the field for him. And also, you could use Deebo Samuel in so many more different ways. There's a lot of wear and tear in that body with how much he's run the football throughout the years. But I like only giving up a 5th. You have 1 year left on that Deebo Samuel deal, and it's very low risk, high reward for a Commanders team that sends a message, hey, we're not just getting complacent and just satisfied with what we did this past year. We're trying to get closer and closer to that Lombardi where we came out of nowhere this past year. We got to an NFC Championship game, but the job's not done yet. And, I'm not comparing it directly to Stephon Diggs with the Texans, and I know that didn't end up working out because Stephon Diggs got hurt, but it was a similar message that was sent last year by the Houston Texans, who had a monster season, came out of nowhere, awesome, excitement with the young quarterback, and then in the offseason, they did improve their team. So I like the start by Adam Peters and the Commanders. I also look at the DK Metcalf stuff. I don't know if he's going to get dealt. Now, I don't know if they are inclined to give him an extension yet. But you keep on hearing things like Tyler Lockett may not be on that team. So if Tyler Lockett's not going to be on that team, I know Jackson Smith-Njigba may be the best wide receiver on that team, but you're going to get rid of both DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett this offseason. But there are a bunch of reports out there, and some of them, right, people say, no, I hear that he's likely to stay. But I've seen the Bills floated out there for DK Metcalf. I've seen the Chiefs floated out there for DK Metcalf. And I've also seen the Green Bay Packers floated out there for DK Metcalf. Out of those three teams, the Bills have Josh Allen, who's already great. The Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes, who's already great. The Packers have Jordan Love, who's good. And, right, Patrick Mahomes doesn't need a number one wide receiver. Josh Allen showed this past year you don't need a number one wide receiver. Now, with both those teams, both those quarterbacks want DK Metcalf, of course. But I think it's more of a priority for the Packers to land him. Especially because Green Bay went wide receiver by committee, and it didn't really work for them this past year on the offensive side of the ball. And then finally, as we go through T. Higgins, we go through Deebo Samuel, and then we go through DK Metcalf, Davante Adams. Now, I said this about Davante Adams when it was rumored that he was going to get traded before the deadline, and he ended up going to the Jets, and he wants to go play with Aaron Rodgers once again and all that stuff. Davante Adams, he's got to learn his lesson. You got to separate friendship and business. That's what Davante Adams needs to do. All right, so you left Green Bay because you were annoyed that you were getting ignored pretty much by the Packers because they were trying to rectify their situation with Aaron Rodgers. You ended up leaving money on the table, and you took less to go reunite with your college buddy in Derek Carr. Then shortly after that, Josh McDaniels said, I want no part of Derek Carr. Then you're with the Raiders. Okay, you want out. I get it. But you end up reuniting with Aaron Rodgers when you knew that the Jets are already a bleep show, and that was a last resort move for them to try to have a last-ditch effort at saving their season. And I remember saying at the deadline last year, before the deadline last year, hey, Davante Adams, go to the Commanders, right? Go link up with the emerging young star in Jaden Daniels. Go back to Green Bay and connect with Jordan Love, or I even threw out the Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. But now we hear this report that the Jets are going to try to trade Davante Adams. I don't think they're going to be successful, right? There's the hot take of the day. I know big bad take coming back from vacation. But Davante Adams still prefers to team back up with Aaron Rodgers wherever Rodgers lands this offseason? Why? You're wasting the last few years of your career trying to recreate that magic that you had with Aaron Rodgers. So what, Rodgers plays one more year? And then you have to then go find your next quarterback again a year from now? So it's very simple. You should have done this at the deadline last year. This past season, you should have said, no, I don't want to go back with Aaron Rodgers. I want to go elsewhere. But go find your new quarterback this year that you can go play the rest of your career with. And I know right now Jaden Daniels off the table because they have Deebo and they have Terry McLaurin. Lamar could use him, right? Imagine Davante Adams and Zay Flowers with Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. That would be fun. Or even go back to Green Bay. There are options out there. Even Davante Adams in Buffalo would be good. Davante Adams in Kansas City. I can name a ton of options that are better than wherever Aaron Rodgers lands and you just going back and milking off the teat of Aaron Rodgers. It makes no sense to me. But, it seems like Davante Adams, at least from the reporting, is addicted to Aaron Rodgers. All righty, we'll take a timeout. When we come on back, we'll address the comments by LeBron James. Lindsay Rhodes going to join us coming up 22 minutes from now at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Michael Chandler, an interview I did with him when I was on vacation. We'll play that for you at 4:40 p.m. Eastern Time, so in about an hour from now. Update time first. Here he is, the Yak Man, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network, Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Your small business keeps you on the go. Progressive Commercial Insurance keeps your policy within reach with their easy-to-use mobile app. Learn more at progressivecommercial.com. The Bengals are trying to hold on to their stars and are using the franchise tag on T. Higgins for a second straight year. He'll be guaranteed over $26 million next year. He could still work out a long-term deal to stay in Cincinnati, which is the team's desire. Darius Slay would like to play another year, but it won't be for the Eagles. The six-time Pro Bowler is reportedly going to be released to free up $4 million in cap space. The 34-year-old was part of the NFL's top defense. Jimmy Johnson is riding off into the sunset, announcing his retirement after 60 years in football as a coach and broadcaster. Johnson was a part of Fox Sports' original crew for the NFL after winning an NCAA championship and 2 Super Bowls. Auburn remains the number 1 team in the nation in the AP Men's Top 25, while Texas tops the women's poll once again, and USC comes in at number 2, its highest ranking in 39 years. Second-ranked Duke will host Wake Forest in its final home game of the season at Cameron Indoor Stadium, where they're 17-0. I'm Rich Ack.
The Infinity Sports Network is on your smart speaker. All you have to say is play Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
All right, it's time to ask the pros. You, the listener, gets to ask us a question brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at INF Sportsnet or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Be listening later in the show. We might answer your question. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Let's hear from LeBron James. This is LeBron James from last week responding to Anthony Edwards saying he has no interest in being the next face of the NBA.
I mean, it's unfortunate, but like, I don't know, why do you want to be the face of a league when all the people that, you know, that cover our game and talk about our game on a day-to-day basis on everybody? I mean, have that responsibility. It's just weird. It's weird energy from the people that I don't know. But Ant said he don't want it. Obviously I didn't ask for it, but I knew there was a responsibility for me, not only to my family, my friends, my community, and whoever that was going to follow my journey throughout my career. I've always taken that seriously and understood from the beginning what being a professional was all about and being a role model was all about. So try to hold that with the utmost respect and honor. But I feel I understand. I completely understand. This is weird energy when it comes to that. So,
can I just ask a question? Who constantly says negative things about LeBron James? right? That's in the national media. Like Skip Bayless is one guy that I can think of. He doesn't even have a show anymore, right? I know he has his podcast, but he was known, right, with being in Fox and launching FS1 and all that stuff. And he does it, and I don't think LeBron really cares what Skip's saying. Like, I took that, and I kind of thought it was the inside the NBA guys that he was referring to. But are they ever really negative about LeBron? Like, Shaq, I don't think so. Kenny, I don't think so. Ernie, definitely not. So, is Charles, like, very negative about LeBron? I don't know. But this idea that LeBron constantly just gets, like, crapped on, what? I think LeBron is sensitive to two things, maybe. Maybe it's the inside the NBA stuff, but also the GOAT conversation that does always occur. Because he's not going to be viewed as the best basketball player of all time. You know, let me play my small violin for you, LeBron. You'll be the second greatest ever. But outside of the decision, and also LeBron James' terrible NBA Finals performance up against the Dallas Mavericks, it's usually mainly positive about LeBron. Now, I don't like that LeBron is buddy-buddy with everybody. I think rivalries are pretty good for the league, and LeBron, like, doesn't really have a rival. But I think we all look at LeBron and we respect his career. So this idea that everyone's just, like, talking negatively about LeBron is ridiculous. The only time people really talk in a negative fashion about the NBA, and shame on us for doing this, is when players don't play, right? It's that simple. Or the regular season product isn't what it should be. Or you have former players that like their eras better than the NBA of this era. But that's the thing that's been going on for years. So I don't think it's weird energy. I just think LeBron is one of those people where he doesn't have to usually deal with a ton of, like, criticism that's fair. So anytime there's any negativity towards him, oh my goodness gracious, it's like the end of the world for him. He only wants positive things being said about him. So here is our very own David Shepard, the Good Shepherd, which you could hear Friday nights into Saturday morning, Saturday nights into Sunday morning from 2 to 6 a.m. Eastern time. I guess Shep, I'm sorry. I guess Shep thought he was going to get LeBron James on his show, so he sent out an email to the Lakers PR staff, and he was annoyed when his email was basically ignored. This is Shep from over the weekend.
My interaction with LeBron James is non-existent. I reached out to the PR people with the Lakers, and I made it very clear to them that I understand LeBron James does not like the coverage that the media gives the NBA, and more specifically, the face of the NBA, whoever he believes that is. And I want to make sure that I do my part in honoring and understanding what LeBron is after, and I would love to have him on our program. Is there any time in the next 2 months that he can join us for 3 minutes, and we can keep it as positive as he wants, and we can honor what it is that he's asking for? And what do you think the response I got was? No, I didn't get that. I got nothing.
So
I got
you
nothing.
did get crickets.
Nothing. So LeBron James is putting out there to everybody that the media doesn't know how to cover the game, is negative, is critical, is cynical, and yet the people that are in charge of that particular organization, in terms of the relationship with the media, they then don't get back to people that want to do good stories on the Lakers. That's a shame. Can't have it both ways, LeBron. Can't use your soapbox to call out falsely an entire industry. And when that industry then wants to empathize with what you're saying, it's met with a Heisman's arm stiff. Not cool.
I think you meant stiff arm there, but that's fine. So I kind of get Shep's point, but didn't LeBron basically do his interview with Scott Van Pelt? Right? Like, no offense, right? I'd say this about me. I'm not, like, if I reach out to the Lakers, I'm not expecting them to say, oh yeah, Zach, we'll give you LeBron James. So, like, Shep shouldn't be expecting the Lakers are going to get back to him. So, like, I don't even remember the last time LeBron did a radio interview, if I'm being honest. So, like, maybe when he was in Miami, if we're being fair. So, this idea that Shep reaches out to the Lakers, right? And he wants 3 minutes with LeBron, and, like, what, you just want LeBron? We know what LeBron's message is. He only wants to say positive things. That's it. So I got a chuckle out of that. Now, Cap reached out to us, and I guess Cap used a little AI to do a little LeBron James Shep kind of song. I haven't heard this yet. This is the first time I'm hearing it. Stu, take it away.
Oh, Shaq had a dream, oh shit, took a chance. He thought LeBron would do a graveyard dance. The late night call, just one sad guy talking ball. But the Lakers just laughed, they rejected it all. Did you think he'd stop this like for you? Leave his mansion for a chat at 2. He's got endorsements, a legacy, fame. You've got a studio nobody knows by name. LeBron's not calling, not now, not ever. Your email request was the dumbest endeavor. From Maggie and Pearl up to Rich Eisen's crew, they're all cracking jokes at the expense of you. Zach Gelb nearly fell out of his chair. Reader testimony, this can't be fair. Even Bokush and Bellotti took a break just to roast you before their next steak. He's got trophies, tequila, $1 billion in checks. You gotta call a name stand who still loves the Mets. Chef, what part of this made you believe that LeBron would call in at 3:30?
That's amazing. Good job by Cap, right? If I was Christopher Mad Dog Russo. Good job by Cap. Nicely produced on getting an artist to come in and record that overnight. You're telling me that's AI? Artificial what? Intelligent? I'm not intelligent. So there you go.
We're screwed.
That's a good job. That's great. So, yeah. I thought it was going to go like, call me maybe or something. Like, LeBron ain't calling Shep.
There are others. Kaplan sent me 5 of them.
Oh, my God.
And there's more. So maybe throughout the show or throughout the week, we can sprinkle in a few more.
Like, and this is not me just poo-pooing Shep. Like, I'd say this about myself. Like, if Stephen A's making the request or Scott Van Pelt or Dan Patrick, all right, maybe we'll get read. But is Shep actually mad that the Lakers didn't get back to him about LeBron? Come on. You know, maybe we get Dalton Connect on the network. Maybe we connect with him. I don't think we're getting the King LeBron James. So 3 minutes of what? Shep, I just want everyone to be positive. And I want all this weird... He already said that stuff. It's a good job at a Cap. Good job. Lindsay Rhodes will join us next. Michael Chandler coming up in 50 minutes. And maybe LeBron will stop by if he's listening on this Monday edition of the Zach Gelb Show.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, hour number 2 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. A very busy hour number 2 of our radio program. We will play a little interview with Michael Chandler from the UFC. There's a big fight coming up. UFC 314 on April 12th up against Paddy Pimblett. That will come your way 40 minutes from now. And we're coming off the NFL Combine, and we're still trying to figure out where these players are going to go, especially early in the draft. I think we know who the first pick is going to be in the draft, just not necessarily who's the team that is necessarily going to pick him. And I know that Lindsay Rhodes was out at the NFL Combine covering it for Sumer Sports. Got a chance to meet Lindsay in person at the Super Bowl on Radio Row, where I actually did an interview with Sumer Sports, and that's Dimitrov's site, obviously, and all the analytics where Thomas Dimitrov does join us a bunch of times all throughout the football season. So we know Tennessee has the first overall pick. Cleveland has the second. You sit there, the Giants are at 3, and then you have the Pats at 4, and then the Jaguars round out the top 5. I feel like Cam Ward, as I said this to open up the show, is going to be the number 1 overall pick. But now knowing Matthew Stafford is not going to be on the move, are the Giants going to be able to trade up from 3 to 1? Are you going to have Cleveland move up from 2 to 1? Or will Tennessee just say, hey, we're going to end up taking Cam Ward with the first overall pick if they are not willing to move back to 2 and 3 in this draft? We know quarterbacks, even though this isn't a deep quarterback draft class, we know quarterbacks are always going to be the story. And now the big questions just are where Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders going to go and what other quarterback could potentially sneak in to the first round of the NFL draft. So some things that did emerge from the NFL Combine. And now we will connect with Lindsay Rhodes, who does a great job covering the NFL for a long time now with Sumer Sports, and she was out in Indianapolis all of last week, and she's kind enough to join us right now. Lindsay, appreciate the time. Good to see you again. How you been?
Hi, good to see you. I've been great. Busy. Woo. It's a fun time of year.
So coming out of the combine, I opened up the show today saying I think Cam Ward is going to be the first overall pick. Now, I don't know if Tennessee's going to take him or if Cleveland or the Giants are going to move up to 1. Do you feel safe in saying right now that the first player in the draft that's going to be taken is Cam Ward?
I don't know. I don't know if I'm there yet. I will say what I did take away from last week is that, so I was trying to get a feel for how, like, what we should really think about the framing of the quarterback class. I think this was the biggest takeaway for me on the week in general, is just trying to get a feel for the way people were talking about it. Because when people talk about it being a bad quarterback class, it's like, well, what does that mean? Is this EJ Manuel draft class bad? Is this Kenny Pickett draft class bad? Like, what are we talking about here? Because last year's class was clearly anomalous in the sense that it was so high end, the 6 guys that go in the first round. Like, that's not something that we're used to seeing. So what does that actually mean? Because we're talking about these 2 guys kind of going high in the first round, but people aren't really buzzing about their skill set in the way that you would normally expect people to when they talk about somebody who's going to go that high in the first round. Like, usually we're in love with those guys, right? And I didn't get the sense that that was the case for really either of these guys. That was my feeling going into Indy. I walked away from Indy feeling like there is more of that for Cam Ward than I necessarily thought going in. When you ask people about Cam Ward, they would just rave. They would go specific. These are the things that we really like about him. These are the reasons we could think he can be very good in the NFL. When you ask about Shedeur Sanders, it was more like, I have concerns, but teams are really desperate and they need quarterbacks. And so it felt like that was what was driving the conversation, which is concerning for me. I feel like that's always a red flag for, we're pushing them up the board just because of need, not because of the specific things that we can tangibly say are going to produce success in the NFL. And so I think you always have to, I'm not saying that this will happen, but I think you always have to put it on your radar that might be a candidate for somebody to fall a little bit further than you would expect. It only takes one team for that not to be true. But I'm more convinced that Cam is at least in the mix for that number 1 pick. And I know people are rolling their eyes like, no, duh, he's the betting favorite. But I think people really like Abdul Carter. And I think people really like Travis Hunter. And I think that they see those guys as more obvious blue chip talents. And I think traditionally when you're picking that high, you want to make sure that you're going to get a return on that and that you're going to get somebody who's going to be a franchise guy that you can hang your hat on for years to come. And those are both positional value positions too, right? Like, so I wouldn't rule them out of the number 1 pick just yet, but I think it's between those 3 guys.
You know, it's fascinating to me, the conversation on Shedeur Sanders, because I feel like just on social media, the media was talking in a very positive way about him, how charismatic he was, you know, the way that he just interacted with the media, because that's a big part of the combine. I liked what he had to say about Will Howard when Will Howard was getting clowned on social media for his combine performance. And I just read Josina Anderson a few moments ago said that she was talking to a quarterback coach from a team drafting him in the top 7 potentially, and referred to Shedeur Sanders as coming off as brash and arrogant. And I always, the combine, the draft process, it rubs me the wrong way because I never know what's factual. Like, hey, I want my quarterback to be an alpha. I expect Shedeur Sanders to be confident, but then sometimes that knocks a player, down in some of the reporting of it. So I don't know if you had any interactions with Shedeur Sanders last week in Indianapolis, but just what are more your thoughts on him and maybe how just being the son of Deion sometimes puts him in the headlines for things that don't really accurately portray who he is?
Well, it's a really interesting dynamic, and I just moved my audio. I felt like it was too hot. So I'm sorry if all of a sudden somebody's scrambling on the audio board here to make this work.
No, you sound great. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. I think that it's tricky because I think that there's an element of him being attached to Deion, and Deion is so powerful within NFL circles that has also made me wonder if in conversation there's also a component about all of this where like nobody wants to say anything bad about Shedeur, right? Like, because that's a lot of power coming back at you, if you were the one that was to say like, actually, I don't think and to put yourself out like that as an evaluator, I think there's a lot that could come back at you in that way that feels risky. So I think that is something that I'm also kind of baking into, like, what am I hearing? What are people saying? What are people not saying? With regard to the Josina Anderson report and just in general, that kind of stuff, I never know what to make of that, because certainly teams, I was told consistently that one of the things from a team standpoint that they value the most about the combine is the ability to interact with these guys in person. As somebody who works in a data space, I could see the value in that, but I could also see the ways in which that might lead you to making mistakes. And I wonder if that is tangibly actually helpful. Like, there was I don't know if you are a fan of Malcolm Gladwell, but he wrote a book a few years back, and I can't remember the name of it, but he talks at one point about how there's a section about, it's just in general about how we're bad judges of character. And we think that we're good at it, but we're actually not. And there's a whole section about how they took like judges and they would make decisions. And they said that your ability to say, like, I don't think this person's going to do this again, and so I'm going to change, the punishment for him accordingly. I think that he's remorseful. I think whatever, that it was actually, they would have done a better job if they had just never met the person ever before, didn't look at them in the face, didn't try to make a judgment call. And they literally just went off of like reading it on paper, what had happened, and then assigned punishments accordingly. And I kind of wonder if that's not something that happens in this type of environment, if people fall in love and the person's a really good salesperson, and then is that even actually valuable? There are clearly some things that are valuable about that, where you're like, do we speak the same language?
Sure.
Can I go to a shorthand really quickly and you're finishing my sentences and I know that like we can work in the same room, that type of thing. But at some of these other positions, not specifically quarterback, I kind of wonder like if that's actually sometimes might do more harm than good.
Lindsay Rhodes here with us from Sumer Sports. So when I saw you guys at the Super Bowl, you had all the data, you could do these player comps, value if you're going to move up in the draft, what it could cost someone in free agency. Just sticking with the quarterbacks for one more question here with the signal callers. When you look at a Cam Ward and a Shedeur Sanders, and everyone's trying to figure out what their ceiling is, have there been any good comps when you guys run your data of quarterbacks that have come before them?
That's a good question. I don't have comps specifically for those guys. I do think, I think it's notable. Like, one of the people that I talked to this week about Shedeur, and just going back to this point, but not to belabor it, said that they thought that he was closer to Jackson Dart than he was to Cam Ward. There were people that were saying that they wouldn't take him until the second round. And so that makes you feel like, from an evaluation standpoint, and that's one of the things that I think we need to do a better job of at this time of year, is like when people do a mock draft, are you mocking based on what you would do? Are you mocking based on what you think the team is going to do? Are you mocking based on need? Are you trying to make headlines? Like, what's actually happening here? Because sometimes, you've got a big board and that's the evaluation of the talent level. Sometimes people will merge the big board with the mock draft. And so like everything kind of starts to get a little bit muddy, and we don't really know what the evaluation on certain players is. So I do think that that's an interesting take there, that we're hearing about him going in the top 5, perhaps because of need. But from an evaluation standpoint, you've got people saying like, I wouldn't actually do that, but will teams do that? I'm not sure. From a comp standpoint, I wish I had the specific comps in front of you. One thing that I do think is really interesting, though, as I say all these negative things about the quarterbacks in this class, one thing that I do think has kind of an asterisk next to it for me is the fact that all of the quarterbacks last year were able to transition pretty smoothly to the NFL. And I wonder if that is a story that exists outside those specific quarterbacks and is more of a trend that speaks to the ways that college football has changed, and the fact that all of these quarterbacks are jumping around so frequently to different schools. And so they're working with different coaches. They're learning different languages. They're learning different offenses. They're working with different coordinators. They're proving that they can adapt. They're not only adapting, but we now have a sample size of proven adaptation. Like I can go into a different system and I can pick it up quickly. And that's why I'm here in this conversation, because I was able to do that as I moved to all these different spots. And I wonder if when you do draft that player, even if they don't look like they're somebody who has like a super high ceiling in terms of tools, if the floor is not higher than it has traditionally been for rookie quarterbacks who've only played under one coach and are now just like swimming in new information in year one, if these guys maybe can play with a higher floor in year one, and then that buys them more time before they're labeled a bust, and then that gives them an opportunity to reach whatever their ceiling is. And also there's the Sam Darnold part of the conversation, right?
Sure.
These guys, if you go to a better team, and most of these teams that are looking for quarterbacks don't check that box, but if you go to a better team and you build an environment around them, how good do you actually have to be? How high does that specific individual ceiling have to be? Or do you just have to be good enough? And do some of these quarterbacks maybe check that box?
Yeah, personally, I think you're going to see Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders go in the first 3 picks. At the latest, I think you'll see them both go in the first 6 picks. Now, a few years ago, right, we saw Bryce Young go 1, CJ Stroud 2, Anthony Richardson go 4, and then another quarterback not go in the first round. I only think there's 2 quarterbacks worthy of taking in the first round this year, and that's Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. But I know, as we've talked about Lindsay Rhodes of Sumer Sports, that it doesn't mean another quarterback can't go. The big name post-Senior Bowl and the Combine has been Jackson Dart. Do you feel confidently now in saying that he'll end up going in somewhere in the first round of the draft coming up on April 24th?
No. Confident? No. Possible? Yes. Again, that would be driven by need also. And the fact that if a team had like a second round grade on him, then I think it becomes possible that he goes in the first, because people can try and trade up to get into the back end of the first to just get that 5th year on him. Where I think it starts to get really interesting is if a quarterback doesn't go until the 3rd. Now I think that maybe there's a development issue or conversation that we need to have, because if you like somebody enough to take them in the 1st, then they are obviously in your plans right away. If you wait till like the 3rd, which I'm hearing some teams go like, yeah, just, sign this veteran and then take a flyer on like a Jalen Milroe in the 3rd, and then maybe that hits them. My question is, where does that development happen? Once you enter the NFL, and you mentioned Anthony Richardson, we're having a hard time finding time and ways to develop Anthony Richardson. And he's a 4th round pick, and they are in it. They have to find ways. They have to find answers. But it's hard if you're not ready in a bunch of different ways, or even, a few that are important. When you enter the NFL, good luck in the cycle of an NFL week with how much time is devoted to game planning and all these different things. It's not like they're taking you out on the field and going, let's work on your footwork. Let's, like if you have problems coming in, I don't know when those things are getting fixed, except for maybe in the off season. And so I think that the whole take a guy in the 3rd round, plug him in, we'll develop him, and then we'll let that guy take over. What ends up happening is that guy's not the plan for this year. He's the plan for the future. So you sign a bridge, and now you've got a veteran out there. And so barring an unforeseen circumstance that's like an injury, then does that guy even get in and get a chance to prove whether or not he can play? In which case, let's say now you're done with that veteran, you're done with that bridge, and you go, okay, we're going to get another quarterback. Nobody's seen this guy that you drafted in the 3rd round for a year or 2. And so you're going to sell your fan base on that. Are you excited about that? Do you have enough information in your holster to go, that's our starter now? And so what typically happens, again, outside of an injury where that guy is thrown onto the field and we do get to see it, is you just throw it away and you go to the next one. And now you're drafting the next guy, like Hendon Hooker. Are we ever going to see Hendon Hooker?
Probably
right?
not. Yeah.
So I think people there are just so many components that go into like where to take these quarterbacks and how to get value out of them. And certainly there's value to just drafting that guy just so you have depth on the roster, just in case somebody does get injured. Because if you don't have a body to put out there, you have absolutely nothing. But I think that people lean on the whole, we'll develop this guy a little bit too much. And I wonder, outside of those injury situations, how much we see that development lead to a starting job.
When you get to Travis Hunter, and I think Abdul Carter's the best player in this draft, period. But when you look at Travis Hunter, do you think, I know it'll be mix and match, it'll play both in some capacity, but will he be primarily a wide receiver or a corner, in your opinion, in the NFL?
I mean, so it's funny because everyone thinks he's a better corner. At least that seems to be consensus, right? When you talk to people, they like rate him out. He's a very good wide receiver. But I think that from talking to people, my sense was that they thought like really good corners are harder to find than like where he would fit into the wide receiver landscape. And so he could provide a team with more value at that position. Charles Davis, who works for NFL Network and CBS and will be on the draft desk for NFL Network, made, I think, a very interesting point, which is that ownership tends to get involved at this time of year. And the people who score touchdowns sell tickets and are exciting. And so maybe that kind of tilts him to a team viewing him in that way.
And more money to be made as a wide receiver, too.
I mean, there's that, but they probably wouldn't want to. That would be why the team wouldn't.
Yeah.
Totally. I think if you do a split, it's probably more, it makes more sense to have him play primarily corner and then go out for a couple of packages as a wide receiver. It's hard for me to view the opposite happening. If you're primarily a wide receiver, all of a sudden, like you just show up on the field defensively. What I do think, again, going back to the things that shouldn't factor into these decisions, but maybe do, is if you can sell him as a two-way player. And this is the thing that makes him generational. And like if an owner feels like they can sell tickets on that and then there's pressure to use him in that way, I think that also leads me to corner with a smattering of wide receiver because you also need it to work. And I don't see how the opposite would work.
Last thing I'll ask you, I only got a minute left here. Lindsay Rhodes does a great job for Sumer Sports on all their NFL coverage. And we've had Thomas Dimitroff on a ton to talk about Sumer Sports in the past. So nice to connect with Lindsay on the show. The gap between Ashton Genty and Amarian Hampton is what, in your opinion?
I don't know that it's that great. And the thing that I'm more interested in is what's the gap between those guys and the guys that you could get in the 3rd round or the 4th round or the 5th round. There's so much depth at running back this year that there's a part of me that wonders, because this is the whole running backs don't matter conversation. It's not that they don't matter. It's that the gap between an elite running back and a good running back, there just statistically isn't that big of a gap. So if you can use your 1st round pick on a different position where there is a big gap, and then pick up a running back in the 3rd round and plug him into an offense. You need a good offense for the running back to have success, period, because they just don't tilt in terms of wins and losses. That's I think the question is whether or not teams will just see more value and whether that pushes Ashton Genty and Amarian Hampton down the board a little bit further than we're expecting, just because you can get good guys a little bit later.
She's Lindsay Rhodes. She does a great job for Sumer Sports. Lindsay, great to connect with you. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All righty, we'll take a break. We'll come on back. Michael Chandler going to join us coming up in 20 minutes. We'll do a little news brief next when we return in a few moments.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Alrighty, news brief time of the Zach Gelb Show. Let's go to Shedeur Sanders on people saying he's not a top quarterback.
When people say I'm not, one of the top quarterbacks or the top quarterback, is what are y'all going based off of? Because I did it year after year after year, and you see the progression. So it's like, obviously, it got to be some type of external hate that you have for the family, for the last name, for anything, because I know I proved myself on the field. If you have those traits of greatness and I know where I'm heading, then why wouldn't the franchise pick me? You got the ultimate cheat code.
So I think sometimes the hate for the Sanders family gets blown out of proportion. I'm not going to say that there isn't any hate, but this idea that so many people are rooting against him because he's Coach Prime's kid, maybe it's just because I don't root against him. That's why I feel that. But I feel as if that gets blown out of proportion and gets greatly exaggerated. Here's what I would say. And I kind of agree with Shedeur. What I look for with quarterbacks, and I think Cam Ward did this as well, do you do more with less? And that's what shows me that you could be a great quarterback and a great leader. And I saw Shedeur Sanders in every stop in college, Jackson State, and also at Colorado, do more with less. Travis Hunter was the best player on that team, but Shedeur was the most valuable. Here is Vic Tafur, Raiders reporter. He was on this show with Linnell Willingham when I was out on vacation, and this is what Vic had to say about Shedeur at the Combine.
Biggest takeaway from this week here in Indianapolis is I think the gap between Ward and Sanders around the league has kind of gotten bigger. I think people now clearly view Cam Ward as the best guy in terms of just, the tools and even the upside. And even the interview process, I don't think Shedeur did a great job in interviews this week against the niggas here. Yeah, obviously he has a lot of confidence. Now, there's nothing wrong with having confidence, but I think just in terms of like what I'm hearing when people compare different quarterbacks in these rooms and interviews, like I think Jalen Milroe did a much better job of like going through like, pre and post-snap reads and kind of how he sees the defense, kind of talking ball with the coaching staff. I think that was not an area of strength for Shedeur this week. And so, again, he can work on that, I'm sure, and he can get better at that. But just initial observation, I think a guy like Jalen Milroe maybe a little more prepared mentally for the NFL than like Shedeur Sanders is.
Yeah, but talent-wise, I'd much rather have the talent of Shedeur Sanders, if that's true, than the talent of Jalen Milroe, because Jalen Milroe reminds me a lot like Anthony Richardson when you've seen little glimpses of it, but you haven't seen it be put together for a long period of time. With Shedeur Sanders, you have. Here is Travis Hunter. What's harder to do, what Shohei Ohtani does or what Travis Hunter does?
What's more difficult for you doing football or what Ohtani does in baseball?
Probably me, what I do in football, because it's a lot on your body. You know, Ohtani, he's a great player, but you got to do a lot in football.
So I think the wear and tear on the body and the physicality, yes, it's tougher on Hunter's body because you're getting hit. Now, I know people would say, oh, but how about the arm injuries that Ohtani suffered? But it's a durability thing. But however, I think the wide receiver and cornerback is a lot similar than compared to what it is being an elite hitter, which Ohtani is, and then also being an elite pitcher. It's two different skill sets. So that, to me, is what I think it's tougher for what Ohtani does compared to what Travis Hunter does. Because, I know that it doesn't always equate just because you're a good wide receiver means you could be a good corner. But a lot of times when you're growing up, you play both positions. Now it's like, if you're a great pitcher, you don't really bat anymore. And right, if you're this great hitter, you don't usually, sometimes, right, it could happen, but you usually got to pick one or the other. And I know that we don't always see examples of what Travis Hunter has done, but I think recently, whether it was Travis Hunter, or you could even go back years and years and years, Troy Brown and Julian Edelman, right? You could go Charles Woodson. There's a ton of instances where you see guys play both ways, where in baseball, like Babe Ruth and Shohei Ohtani, they've just been two of the best to ever do it. You don't usually see it. Rick Ankiel, right, has been thrown out, but that was kind of due to injury and things like that. So I think it's tougher for Ohtani to excel at both than it is for Travis Hunter, but Travis Hunter's argument there is a lot more contact on his end. Let's go to Sean McVay on the Matthew Stafford deal getting done.
Matthew was great. I think Jimmy Sexton, Matthew's agent, was excellent. Les had a lot of dialogue with him. And then ultimately sitting down with Matthew and with Kelly, and then being able to have Kevin, Les, and Tony be a part of that. I think it was a really beneficial conversation. And I think ultimately it's about the partnership and how important it is, to have him leading the way. And so couldn't be more grateful, really excited about it, and been sleeping better these last couple days.
You knew it was going to get done. You knew. It was just, when was it going to get done? And you had to feel pretty confident, let him go talk to the other teams, because even though teams like the Giants or the Raiders or whomever could have offered more money, does Matthew Stafford really want to go end his career on the crappy Giants or on the crappy Cleveland Browns or the crappy Las Vegas Raiders? No. When he's on a team right now that is a Super Bowl contender and just won a Super Bowl a few years ago. And notice, there's been no details that have come out about this contract with Matthew Stafford and the Rams yet. We haven't seen what the numbers are. So that shows you probably didn't get that much more than what he was making, probably got slightly more, and you knew that the offers would have been greater out there, but ultimately this guy wants to win. So you had this little staring contest, and eventually they both realized, okay, 1, 2, 3, Stafford, we're going to say blink. All right, you blink first. Okay, all right, we got the deal done. We're good. From the Combine, I think this is the biggest story. Jordan Schultz against Ian Rappaport. Here is PFT commenter, Pardon My Take, giving us a little bit more information on what sparked the kerfuffle and the fight heard around the reporting world between Jordan Schultz and Ian Rappaport.
Jordan Schultz walks up to Ian and says, we have to talk. Ian says, I don't think we have to talk about anything. Jordan Schultz then says, you need to back the off because you're talking about me behind my back.
Oh, okay.
Then Rappaport was like, I'm not talking about you behind your back. Apparently, this is what the scuttlebutt was.
Okay.
Schultz was saying that Ian Rappaport is going behind his back and telling people that Jordan Schultz gives agents Uber stock in exchange for scoops.
Okay.
I talked to Rappaport. Ian Rappaport has never told anybody that they get Uber stock, but now it's
according to Ian Rappaport.
But per sources. So there was a dust up. There was a fracas. He got He got in his face, apparently. This is per Pro Football Talk. If you have anything to say to me, say it to my face, Schultz said. If this continues, we're going to have a problem.
Oh, boy.
If this happens again, we're going to have a problem, Schultz said, or specific words to that effect. I love that reporting by Florio. Now I'll step back.
So here's my thing. If they were actually to fight, Jordan Schultz would beat up Ian Rappaport. But I kind of get Ian Rappaport since he's a better insider than Jordan Schultz. Like, Jordan Schultz is a good insider, but it's not a creme de la creme name, and he's done a good job in increasing his brand and, getting more news items out there. But Ian Rappaport, Schefter, Pelissero, Glazer, that's the core four of NFL Insider. So I could see, especially when you have the NFL Shield, why Ian Rappaport's like, get the heck out of my face. But the weird part is, imagine if Schultz, did confront him, if that's true. Oh, you're saying I'm giving Uber stock to people. And imagine if Ian Rappaport's like, what? And that's not true? So does that mean it's true, and then maybe you were just insecure about it? I don't know. I just have to ask the question. Let's listen up. This was a caller earlier this morning on the Maggie and Perloff show. I always love when a caller calls in and can't get the host name right. So listen up.
Hey, aren't you that guy from DC show a long time ago? You sound just like you. That's what I know that guy said he was going to Iceland or something like that.
I have no idea who you're talking about. DP show?
Interesting.
Don't know that.
Does anyone tell you look like McLovin?
You sound just like him, man. That's what I'm like, dang. I forgot your name was McMuffin or something like that.
Yeah.
But
nope.
If it's not you, my mistake. I'm sorry. But
I don't know what you're talking about, James.
Stu, do you think that was a clueless caller who just got it wrong, or do you think he was trying to troll Perloff?
I think that was a clueless caller.
I thought it was a troll.
No, I don't think so.
Because he got the DP show, oh, you sound like the guy, and then the McMuffin part is what makes me think it's a troll. Because he clearly knew enough to get in the right area code. But I also had a guy that once called me and thought my name was Scott Gelb, and he was being dead serious. But that guy sounded a little bit more loopy than this guy that was on the phone.
Wait, your name's not Scott?
What's your name, Moist? So I thought that was a funny interaction. Look at us. We're showing the network a lot of love today. You know, we're playing Shep, getting annoyed at people from the Lakers for not getting back to him on a request that he had for LeBron James to come on his show. And then someone calling Andrew Perloff, who was referred to as McLovin for all those years, McMuffin. When we come on back, Michael Chandler will join us. I recorded this interview when I was on vacation. Even when I'm on vacation, I'm always working. You know, it just happens. So we got pitched to have Michael Chandler on, and I was like, up Friday. I got to go find the computer. I have no equipment with me. I got to get something to be able to record it, because when you get pitched Michael Chandler, you obviously say yes. So we'll talk about his big fight coming up in 6 weeks up against Patty Pimblett, and we'll play that conversation when we come on back. Update time first. Here he is, the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, the Bengals didn't have the best season, but are blessed with some top-flight talent. As they try to figure out a way to keep their best players in-house, they're using the franchise tag on T. Higgins for a second straight year. The two sides can still work out a long-term deal, but for now, Higgins is guaranteed to make over $26 million next season. Darius Slay won't be around for the Eagles' title defense. The veteran safety is reportedly going to be released to free up more than $4 million in salary cap space. At age 34, Slay would like to play another season. Jimmy Johnson announced his retirement today. The 81-year-old two-time Super Bowl winner had spent the last 30 years at Fox Sports on their pregame show, with two stints sandwiched around a brief stint coaching the Dolphins. He also won an NCAA championship at Miami. Auburn remains the number one team in the nation in the latest AP Top 25. Second-ranked Duke goes for its seventh straight in their final home game of the season. They are 17-0 at Cameron Indoor Stadium. Texas is once again number one in the women's poll, followed by USC, getting its highest ranking since 1986. And Braves catcher Sean Murphy will miss 4 to 6 weeks with a rib injury, taking him out of the opening day lineup. I'm Rich Ackerman.
The Infinity Sports Network is on your smart speaker. All you have to say is play Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
All righty, we continue. This is Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on the Infinity Sports Network. Coming up in about 6 weeks, we got UFC 314. I'm actually in Florida right now. and I'll be heading down to Miami tonight, heading over to Joe Stone Crab. So looking forward to another sensational meal. But getting to the fight on the UFC 314 card, you'll see Paddy Pimblett go up against Michael Chandler, and Michael Chandler's kind enough to join us right now. Michael, appreciate the time. How you been?
You got it, man. Thank you for having me. I'm good, man. I'm down here in Florida getting after it. You know, we're in the thick of training camp. We're laying down a good foundation and ready to go out there and compete in Miami.
Yeah, like I said in the intro, I'm going to Joe's tonight. So I'll be having the jumbo stone crabs. I'll be having the fried chicken, the lobster mac, the key lime pie, all that stuff. I'm assuming you can't eat that way right now, correct?
Yeah, man. It's really funny. Anytime I'm down here in Florida, everybody's like, hey, where's a good place to get a good meal? Where's a good place to go have a drink? I'm like, I don't know. I never get to do that when I'm down here in Florida. I got a mega fit meal I'm about to throw in the skillet, and I'm calorie restricted. But hey, man, discipline equals freedom around here, man. So we're good.
Well, sorry to do that to you. Michael Chandler here with us. Had this come about because when I heard that you were fighting Paddy Pimblett, as a fight fan, I was just like, wow, that's awesome. So take me to the behind the scenes of it.
Yeah, it's a good fight. It's a fun fight. It's a fight that I think Paddy wants. Obviously, anytime you're outside the UFC top 10, you want to fight somebody who's inside the UFC top 10. I have fought the murderer's row, the who's who of the UFC lightweight division, fought for the title, fought for the number one contender spot, fought fight of the year, fight of the night, another fight of the year, man. So it's the life cycle of a fighter. You have to, at some point, take a fight outside of, give a guy who's outside the top 10 an opportunity. And I believe I stopped the Paddy Pimblett train in Miami. And it's a fun fight. They called me and said, hey, what do you think about this fight? I said, hey, man, I like Paddy. I like his brand. I respect him. Would love to compete against him. As you know, I don't need to hate somebody to put on the type of performances that I put on. Got a lot of respect for him, but I plan on putting a couple fists on his face.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, right? Because you could be polarizing. Paddy Pimblett could be polarizing. It's just the fight game. But for you, like, I've always enjoyed watching you. When it comes to Paddy, at first, I didn't like him. Then the Barstool connection, I'm like, okay, I like him. And recently, he's kind of, I think, in this new version of himself, has gained more respect with the fight fan community. I could be totally off on that, but your view of him from afar is what exactly?
Yeah, I mean, no matter what, I mean, it's hard. Like, even for me, I came into the UFC. A lot of people didn't like me. They're like, who is this Bellator dude talking about fighting Khabib? And who does this guy think that he is, right? Like, you can't. It takes a little while. It takes some wins. It takes some decent competition for the fans to be like, okay, we'll get behind you, right? And I think Paddy has slowly continued to step up his game. And his last fight against, was it Bobby Green or Tony Ferguson, whichever one it was. I mean, those are two guys. They're not on my level, but they are definitely tougher competition that he has fought in the UFC thus far. So he's just continued to build his brand with these fights that he has. I obviously, my resume speaks for itself. I'm a different beast than he's ever fought. So we'll see how he handles it. Does he sink? Does he swim? We'll see.
What do you think you have to prove coming up 6 weeks from now?
It's a good question. I mean, I think obviously my resume speaks for itself with the guys that I have fought, the performances that I put on. And I just want to go out there and continue to remind people who I am. I want to go compete. I want to go have fun. I love what I get to do. I'm training every single day. I still feel really young and full of energy. And, if age, when people talk about age, man, it really depends on how many miles you have on you. I don't have a lot of miles on me compared to a lot of guys my age. So, man, I'm excited to go out there and compete. I'm excited to go out there and compete against Paddy because he is no Charles Oliveira, no Dustin Poirier, no Justin Gaethje, some of these guys that I have fought. With that being said, he's still dangerous. He's got a set of skills that we have to look out for. But I plan on, like I said, ending the Paddy Pimblett train on April 12th.
I know you talked about your age here, Michael Chan. You're 38, right? You turned 39 coming up in April. How much longer do you plan to do this, or is age just a number to you?
Man, age is just a number. It really just depends on how you feel. My body feels great. My body is holding up. I'm very, very sharp. I got my wits about me. So I've taken really, really good care of myself. And I had a lot of fights in Bellator where I finished guys in the first round and didn't take a ton of damage, So, I mean, it's not like I've been fighting in the UFC going through war after war after war for the last 15 years. I had a lot of fight camps where I put in a lot of good foundational training, created skills, and then went out there and beat a guy in the first round, second round, didn't really get touched, and then moved on to the next one. So, I mean, I feel great, man. I don't see an end in sight. Obviously, that's part of the athlete's dilemma, right? We never look to the end. When am I gonna retire? When am I gonna look to step away? But heck, I thought I'd be retired by 35, and here I am at 38, feeling better than I ever thought I would feel at 35, still feeling like I'm 25. So we're gonna keep on going, and everybody get your tickets because I will steal the show April 12th.
It's kind of crazy when we talk about you, and I know that you've made a return since the whole McGregor experience. I was there at Madison Square Garden for your fight up against Charles, but still, that's such a big conversation. What happened those last few years with Conor? When you get to reflect on it, how do you kind of reflect on that whole wait and see period that you were kind of held to?
Yeah, I mean, it was just part of the process, man. You never quite know how your story is going to be written while you're in it, right? And I've been vocal. I needed a little bit of time off. I mean, I fought, what was it, like five fights in a 24-month period, basically. It was a lot of fights. And it wasn't just fights that I had to train. I could go train 6 weeks for them. And I had to put in a hard 12-week training camps against some of the toughest guys, the murderer's row of the UFC lightweight division, and had some more. So I wanted a little bit of time off. I enjoyed it. It gave me some opportunities to really look at different business things, spend a lot of time with my wife, go on dates with her, go on trips with her, spend time with my sons. And it was so I look back on it and say, hey man, that was part of my process to become the man I am today. And we'll see if Conor ever comes back. He has no choice but to fight me. When he comes back, his road goes straight through Nashville, Tennessee, and straight through Michael Chandler. So we'll see if that fight ever happens. But right now we're focused on Paddy Pimblett, and I still feel phenomenal.
You don't think he's ever fighting again, Conor, right? Like, I have a tough time believing, unfortunately, that he's ever going to return to the octagon.
Yeah, I mean, I think you would be you wouldn't be, crazy to think that he's never coming back. I mean, with his antics and the way that he handles things outside of his training, which obviously hasn't trained in years, but we'll see. I've said, man, my heart of heart says he's coming back at some point, but if I was a betting man, I ain't putting money on it. I'll tell you that much. So we'll see. All I know is, as you can see by the decisions that I'm making, fighting Charles in November, now Paddy in April, staying busy, I am no longer worried about that fight. If it comes to fruition, it will. And when he does come back, he's got to fight me. So we'll see.
I know you got to run. Before we let Michael Chandler go, RG3 and his wife had Dustin Poirier on, and when they were talking to Dustin, he called you fake. He called you a cheater. Just how do you respond to what Dustin said to RG3?
I don't. And, I don't lose a wink of sleep thinking about Dustin Poirier and how he thinks about me. Unfortunately, obviously, I live rent-free in his head, and he does lose sleep over me. So I don't think about it. When you ask, what do you think about it? I don't. So, yeah, man, it's no big deal. We'll keep on moving on. Not everybody's going to like you, and that's just fine by me.
When I hear that, I go, could we see those guys fight again? Because I remember what you guys did at Madison Square Garden. Would you welcome that?
I'll tell you what, man. I mean, I would definitely welcome me being Dustin's retirement fight. I mean, he's a legend, and I say that because he's a legend. It's not like I want to get back the loss, or it's not because I have any kind of animosity. I don't want to fight him because of the disagreements that we've had. I just want to fight him because he's a legend, and I would. So we'll see. I'll heal up after April, after I start Paddy Pimblett, and he's talking about fighting in July, August. I wouldn't mind going to New Orleans at that time of year. Either way, I'm coming to the fight. I'm gonna be there for his retirement fight out of respect, but I wouldn't mind stepping in the octagon with him. We'll see.
He's Michael Chandler. Good luck coming up in 6 weeks in Miami for UFC 314 up against Paddy Pimblett. Appreciate giving us a few minutes today.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
There he is, Michael Chandler. A few reactions from that. Number one, he basically kind of just ignored the cheater and the fake stuff. But then, right, he played the card of it. I respect it this way. Clearly, Dustin Poirier, who he did lose to, it was a great fight, by the way. I was there at the Garden for it. It was unbelievable. But he basically then had everyone, right, you try to ignore the idea that you lost him, but I live rent-free in his head. And to be fair, it was Poirier who started this last run of comments in the last week when he went on RG3's show. So that was that. I think, though, the follow-up question I asked that you just heard, which was the last answer of would you fight him again? I thought that was a classy answer from Michael Chandler. And I don't know if Dustin Poirier would do it for his final fight. I don't. But I would enjoy seeing them both fight again, especially with Poirier clearly hating him and Chandler's like, whatever. So that's that. The McGregor stuff, I think you'd be a fool at this point. I do. To ever think that Conor McGregor is fighting again. But with that being said, the winner of this fight between Paddy Pimblett and Michael Chandler, Chandler thinks, right, it's his right to go fight Conor McGregor, and I would understand him when he dragged him along the last 2 years. But Paddy Pimblett, who did a media tour on Thursday, already threw out how he wants to fight Conor McGregor. And imagine those two personalities of McGregor up against Paddy Pimblett. So I think whoever wins this fight on April 12th in Miami, that's going to be the pivot play. For Chandler, it's going to be, okay, now McGregor, basically come to daddy. Paddy Pimblett, I'm the new young star, right? The brash guy, and he has to be a better fighter. And I've been up and down on him, but if he wins, then the easy play is to just, all right, let's market my personality against what you used to be and have that fight. But I don't think McGregor's fighting again either way. I don't. Until I see him in the octagon and you're like Herb Dean standing there saying, all right, let's go. I do not, or, Buffer screaming, it's time. I don't think we're ever seeing Conor McGregor fight again. So that's just, the way that I feel about it. So how do I say this correctly? My love for the UFC is growing. I can't always tell you if this guy wins, who he ends up fighting. But I've now been to, whether it was the Prudential Center, Madison Square Garden, I've been to more than a few fights. And I watch all the big cards now. I do. And I'll be watching on Saturday. And I'll definitely be watching on April 12th. So fun to connect with for a few minutes with Michael Chandler and really get his response on Dustin Poirier and talk about some of the Conor McGregor stuff as well. All righty, we will take a break. When we come on back, so we know Matthew Stafford's back with the Rams. Aaron Rodgers needs one destination, because if he doesn't get that destination, and if he's not playing for that team next year, it's going to be pretty sad what happens to the end of the career of one Aaron Rodgers. I'll tell you why next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All right, away we go. Hour number 3 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Getting right back into the NFL draft conversation and also the NFL free agency conversation, as that is almost upon us, coming up next week with the new league year starting. So we know Matthew Stafford is staying with the Rams. We told you that. Deebo Samuel, he got traded, we knew, a year ago, right? That's when I first started speculating. I'm like, all right. They paid Ayuk. I think a year from now, they're going to go trade Deebo Samuel. He goes to the Washington Commanders. I think that is low risk, high reward for pretty much a one-year deal, a fifth-round pick. I think that's a good job by the Commanders to start what could be an aggressive offseason for them. On the Myles Garrett front, the Cleveland Browns keep on saying we're not trading him. I will believe that when he is actually playing for the Cleveland Browns come week 1 of the NFL season. I do ultimately think he is going to get dealt. I did read some articles over the weekend, right, that the Bills, the Lions, the Eagles, that those seem to be the 3 teams most aggressive on the Myles Garrett front. Now, I haven't heard much about Kansas City yet. The Commanders will obviously be talked about. But when you look at the Bills and the Lions, I thought last week, right, some of the conversations and the articles were shifting those 2 teams away, right, with Brad Holmes saying it's going to be tough to do. But with that being said, or, even some of the comments by Brandon Beane, it's one thing to say something, and then it's another thing to follow through with it. And I don't think it helps you right now when the Browns keep on saying we're not trading him to then go tip your hand and reveal that publicly. I would be very surprised if the Eagles don't make a strong push for Myles Garrett. I think the Bills and the Lions would be silly not to. And a team like the Commanders, you go get your cornerstone player on the defensive side of the ball when you already have your cornerstone player on the offensive side of the ball. And for Kansas City, why not at this rate? You could go make a big splash move that will make that team even better. So I still think he lands on one of those 5 teams, whether it's the Bills, the Lions, the Eagles, the Commanders, or the Chiefs. I feel as if Myles Garrett will get traded to one of those teams. Also, other stories that have emerged post the combine. Obviously, you have what happened just a few hours ago. T. Higgins getting slapped at the franchise tag. Now the question becomes from now until July 15th, when is the deadline for tag players to reach a long-term deal with their current teams? Do you get a long-term deal done? Because if you don't, and T. Higgins has to play on the 26 point whatever $1 million tag number is for the second tag for him this year, then does T. Higgins actually play for the Cincinnati Bengals, or does he get traded somewhere else? So those are some things to monitor. But with Stafford being the domino to fall, and it always goes back to quarterbacks. Like coming off the combine, what do we hear? Oh, the quarterback draft class is not that strong. And I still think that you will get 2 quarterbacks at the absolute latest go in the top 6. Maybe 2 quarterbacks go in the top 3, or maybe even the first 2 picks be quarterbacks. We'll get more to that in just a bit. But with Stafford staying put, I thought Stafford, out of the names that weren't via the draft, I thought Stafford, whether it was trade or whether it was free agency, I thought Stafford was the biggest name because you could argue he is the 6th or 7th, probably at the worst, 8th best quarterback in football, if we're just being fair. So Stafford stays with the Rams. You had teams like the Raiders. You had teams like also the New York Giants clearly show interest. But ultimately, I don't think there was ever a team out there, maybe outside of the Steelers. And the Steelers, I guess they didn't really have any correspondence with him, that if they gave him the number financially that he wanted, that he could at least talk himself into it being an actual good destination. Cleveland, the Giants, the Raiders. I'm not saying all these teams were in. The Giants and the Raiders were. But if they're willing to give you $50 million a year, great. Do you want to end your career being the 4th team in the AFC West? Do you want to end your career with, at best, being the 3rd best team in the NFC East, probably the worst team in the NFC East? When you have a team that was 1 touchdown away from taking down the Eagles in their house in snowy Lincoln Financial Field. And if you win that game, no disrespect to the Commanders, you're probably going to the Super Bowl. You're probably beating the Commanders. So there wasn't really a team out there that Stafford could view as better. And ultimately, we'll eventually find out what the numbers are. I don't really think Stafford had all that much leverage. So from a Rams standpoint, it made sense to bring him back. And from a Stafford standpoint, it made sense to stay with the Rams. But now, I'll be curious who people view as the next name that they're most intrigued by. From a recognizable standpoint, it is obviously Rodgers is the most recognizable name. But is Rodgers, at this stage of his career at 41, is he the most in-demand name on the market? Now, I'm going to assume from now until tomorrow, and I think the deadline for the tag is tomorrow, that Sam Darnold is not going to get tagged. I think there's intrigue on where Sam Darnold could go. Kirk Cousins right now is still part of the Atlanta Falcons. I think that will eventually change. So is Kirk Cousins going to be that next big name that's going to generate a lot of interest? Like, who is the next name that has a lot of sizzle? Sam Darnold, right? We talked about him, and you get to Kirk Cousins. I still think it's Rodgers. I do. Now, you could say, oh, well, what has Rodgers done the last 2 years? He's been hurt. He played well down the stretch last year, but the start was so just abysmal. And you look at the names that are out there, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, Sam Darnold, he had an unbelievable story. And then the last 2 weeks of the season, it went all down the drain. It really did. Terrible performance up against the Detroit Lions, and then a horrible playoff performance up against the Rams. Those 2 games at the end of the season, last week of the regular season, with the number 1 seed in the divisional line, and then the wild card game in the postseason, it kind of, all the good work that Sam Darnold did all the stones that he unturned, all the non-believers that he made believers, right? It all went right out the window. So do I think Sam Darnold's going to get this crazy contract? No. Could he get a 3-year deal similar to Baker Mayfield money? I guess. But ultimately, I don't think he's going to be back with the Vikings unless there is no market for Sam Darnold. And right, like the Steelers say, you know what, we don't want Sam Darnold. We're going to keep either Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. You know, the Raiders say, we're going to go get our quarterback in the draft. The Browns, I don't think they're going to be giving out big money. They just got off the Deshaun Watson situation. If they're going to give money, it's going to be on a 1 or 2 year deal for like a Rodgers or for a Kirk Cousins. So you go through the names that are available. I think the most intriguing name is where is Rodgers going to land? Like, I'm curious where Sam Darnold's going to go, but am I going to sit here and view whatever team Sam Darnold go to as a threat? No, I'm just not. I'm wondering what the ceiling could be for a Justin Fields, young quarterback, but we've been doing this song and dance the last 2 years. Russell Wilson, fine quarterback. I don't think he is that much of a difference maker anymore. But for Rodgers, where the heck is he going to go? And it's not necessarily he's going to go someplace and you're going to say, wow, they're a Super Bowl contender. But you always know what Rodgers is capable of. And also, is there a scenario that was thrown out to us last week where Aaron Rodgers could get the Bill Belichick treatment and get shut out? You know, is that a possibility that Aaron Rodgers can get shut out of this NFL offseason, and then that's a sad way that his career comes to a close? Because the way that Aaron Rodgers can have a little juice, right? Have a little buzz. Maybe you feel, okay, he's going to be decent next year. He, could go to the playoffs. And Ty Dunn was the one that first threw out with us last week that there's a possibility that Belichick and Rodgers gets the Belichick treatment. But if Rodgers goes to the Steelers, I look at that and I say to myself, okay, right? That's a team, right? They made the playoffs last year with the combination of Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Do I still think Aaron Rodgers entering 2025 is a better quarterback than Russell Wilson? I do. Do you think Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback entering 2025 than Justin Fields? I do. Now, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden the offensive line issues are fixed in Pittsburgh, or George Pickens is now all of a sudden not going to become a head case, right? And probably Najee Harris isn't going to be back next year. And defensively, was last year just a one-time wonder where the defense didn't play well? Or is that now going to be that defense reaching the end of its road of being a really good defense in this league? But could the Steelers next year win a playoff game with Aaron Rodgers? The Steelers, by the way, haven't won a playoff game since 2016. I'm not going to sit here and tell you no. But if the Steelers end up saying, hey, like what Kaboli told us last week, he thinks it's going to be Justin Fields. And I can see why the Steelers do that. All right, what's really the game bringing in Rodgers? We just did the Russ thing for a year. It was fine. But let's see if we go find their next franchise quarterback. Now, a lot of us could think, hey, Justin Fields isn't a franchise quarterback. That's fine. But Justin Fields with the Bears, the opportunity, you could blame it more on the Bears. This year, for whatever reason it was, they sat Fields even when he was winning games in Pittsburgh. So that still rubs me the wrong way. You would do that, but now you're going to make him your starting quarterback. So I'm not sitting here saying that, hey, Justin Fields is going to go be some star. But look how long it took Geno Smith to put it together. Look how long it took Sam Darnold to put it together. And all both those quarterbacks needed was a better landing spot. So if the Steelers fully commit to Justin Fields, I'm not going to sit here and totally dismiss and say that it can't work out. But where Rodgers goes, I don't think any of us have a damn clue. I would like to see him in Pittsburgh, but if it's not Pittsburgh, and the Rams, right, that was the idea. Oh, well, Stafford gets traded, then Rodgers would just waltz right into the LA Rams, and that would be good. But if it's not the Steelers, and now we know the Rams are off the table, where the heck is he going to go? And I watched an interview last night that Adam Schefter did with Part of My Take. And this was before they knew that Stafford was definitely going back to the Rams. And they threw out a few destinations, right? Could you see him going to the Rams? Schefter said yes. Now we know that's not going to happen. He said, could you see him potentially going to the Raiders? He said yes. He said, could you see him potentially going to the Giants? He said yes. What about Tennessee with the Titans? He said no. What about the Browns? Could you see that? He said no. And I think there was one more other team out there. It was the Rams, which are off the board, the Raiders, and the Giants, and I forget the other team. So if the options are, maybe it was Pittsburgh, could have been the other one. But let's say he doesn't go to Pittsburgh. The Rams are already off the table. And that leaves you between the Raiders and the Giants. Think about how that career ends for Aaron Rodgers. Stu, would you be fine for a year of Aaron Rodgers with the Las Vegas Raiders? I know we've talked about this before, but it really changes day by day. Hey, 2 months ago, I thought Shedeur Sanders was going to be the first quarterback off the board. Now I think without a doubt it's going to be Cam Ward. So these could change week to week, month to month, or even day to day, hour to hour. In your fandom opinion, Rodgers to the Raiders on a 1-year deal, you in or you out?
I am out. No, thank you.
Okay. Because you don't think it does anything for the franchise for really this upcoming year?
No, and it's not worth the drama, honestly.
Okay. So that's the drama part of it.
There are other, I'd rather have Russ. I'd rather have Cousins. I'd rather draft a quarterback.
You don't think the difference at this stage of Rodgers' career is that bigger than Rodgers compared to Kirk, Rodgers compared to Russ, or even what it would do for the franchise, right?
No. Maybe one win?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think so even.
Even if it gets you 3 more wins,
who
does
cares?
anyone put the Raiders? Hey, let's say one of the Broncos or let's say the Broncos regress this year. Let's say maybe Bo Nix doesn't play as well as what he did last year, right? Broncos still need some more talent. I like Benito. I like Surtain, obviously. But let's just say the Broncos regress. Even if they're you then tell me, okay, the Broncos will finish 4th in the division. Just throwing it out there. If you then ask me, where do you put the Raiders? I'm still putting them 3rd. If you tell me the Broncos finish 4th, there's, even if you put the Chargers 4th and you say the Broncos and the Chiefs and the Raiders, who's going to finish 3rd? Then it would be the Raiders. So the other thing is, I know it's different regimes, but the Raiders should have been in on Rodgers 2-3 years ago, and they weren't. So I think that ship has already sailed, and I still believe that Darnold's going to wind up. I think the Raiders, I don't know if you'll agree or disagree with this. I think it'll either be Darnold on a 3-year deal, and they'll say, okay, Pete's on a 3-year deal. We'll match him up with Darnold, and maybe we have some outs in that deal if the Pete Carroll experiment doesn't work and the Sam Darnold experiment doesn't work as well. You front load the contract, and then the last year could basically be irrelevant. Maybe that's what it is. I think it'll either be Darnold for 3 or 4 max, or the Raiders are going to go get a quarterback in this draft. And I think Cam Ward's going 1, whether that's the Raiders trading up to 1. I think if the Titans are trading the pick, they're really going to only seriously discuss a deal getting done with the Browns and the Giants, because it only pushes them back to 2 or 3 and still enables them to get a Travis Hunter or gets an Abdul Carter. So I don't think the Raiders are going to be able to get the Cam Ward situation done in a trade. But if Shedeur Sanders falls, where Cleveland passes up on him, the Giants pass up on him, which I still have a tough time seeing both those teams pass up on him, then Pats are 4, don't need a quarterback. Jaguars already committed to Trevor Lawrence. Then the Raiders could still get Shedeur Sanders. So that's where I'm at right now. I think it will either be Sam Darnold for 3 or 4 years on a contract, or they're going to find a way to go get Shedeur Sanders. Is that where you at too?
I agree. I also don't think Russ can be ruled out. I think Russ would be the 3rd option of those 3. But
even though it ended poorly with Pete, they reunited and Russ realizes that I need Pete more than I thought I did.
Yeah, I think it'd be both sides. Raiders wouldn't really have an answer unless they move back into the 1st to draft a quarterback, and Russ might just be without a team.
Can I just give you 3 mock drafts real quickly? So
sure.
This is we'll get to what the Raiders end up doing. So this is from Yahoo Sports. Cam Ward to Tennessee, Abdul Carter to Cleveland. The Giants, they end up taking Travis Hunter. So I guess there's a lot of Rodgers-Giant speculation there. The Raiders then trade with my Patriots. That'd be good for the show. They get Shedeur Sanders. Jaguars, Mason Graham. Patriots end up getting McMillan from Arizona. So that's a name. Right, McMillan, last week we were just talking about how one mock draft had him falling all the way to 20. Now this mock draft has him back in the top 6. It just shows you how stupid some of this stuff is. Now let's go to Lance Zierlein. So that is one Yahoo Sports saying Raiders Shedeur. Okay. Lance Zierlein, Cam Ward to Tennessee, Abdul Carter to Cleveland, Travis Hunter to the Giants. So Shedeur falling out of the top 3 in back-to-back mock drafts. Will Campbell, Patriots 4. Will Johnson to the Jaguars at 5. Shedeur Sanders to the Raiders at 6. So 2 mock drafts. Shedeur to the Raiders. Now let's see Ryan Wilson of CBS Sports. Cam Ward to Tennessee. Abdul Carter to Cleveland. Travis Hunter to the Giants, Kelvin Banks to the Patriots, Mason Graham to the Jaguars, Shedeur Sanders to the Raiders. So, Stu, 3 different websites, NFL.com, CBS Sports, Yahoo Sports, all have Shedeur going to the Raiders. And the first person to predict Shedeur to the Raiders, and this was at the end of the draft last year, was your boy. I have a tweet. I just feel like Shedeur Sanders is going to be the next quarterback of the Raiders. I put it out there. And now I hear Yahoo Sports, NFL.com, and CBS Sports all have him going to the Raiders. It makes me think that Shedeur Sanders isn't going to the Raiders now.
Feels like it's possible. I still think he'll go.
You don't want to get your hopes up?
Yeah, I still think the Schefter-Browns thing is still in my head.
Right? Because how bizarre is that? Before the combine starts, Schefter is on his own podcast saying, I don't know what's going to happen at 1, but the thing I'm most confident about is the Browns with their first-round pick. That's how he said it, with their first-round pick. So whether that's trading back, moving up, staying at 2, are going to take a quarterback. That's how I perceived it. So maybe Schefter went into this draft thinking that Tennessee was passing on Cam Ward. Or maybe he went in saying, even if Tennessee or another team moves into 1, even if it's not the Browns, they take Cam Ward, then there's no doubt about it, Cleveland's going to take Shedeur Sanders at 2. And none of those mock drafts had Shedeur Sanders going at 2. And none of them even had Cam Ward now not even being the number 1 overall pick. So that's 3 mock drafts that all had Cam Ward going number 1. And then even Schefter, though, Cleveland is absolutely, thinking he's most confident about in this draft, is going to take a quarterback. None of them had Shedeur Sanders going, or a quarterback period going to Cleveland in the first 2 picks, too. That, you're right, when it's Schefter, no offense, if it was Jordan Schultz, if it was, I'm trying to think other NFL, like even I love James Palmer, right? James, we put him on the show all the time. This is not me just like going after Jordan Schultz or someone. I have no reason to go after Jordan Schultz, but he was in the news for a little kerfuffle that happened with Ian Rappaport. And even if it was a Mike Garafolo, right? Those guys are credible. Those guys get a lot of news items, but NFL words mean more when they come from Schefter, Rappaport, Pelissero, or Glazer. And the number 1 NFL insider said, it's his opinion, that the Browns will use their first-round pick on a quarterback, and no one had the Browns right there taking a quarterback from Yahoo, NFL.com, or CBS Sports. That's interesting to me, Stu. It does make you say, pause, hold up. What does Schefter know that all these other guys do not know?
Yeah, so that's why I'm still kind of cautiously optimistic, trying not to get my hopes up, but we'll see. Still a ways to go.
It wouldn't be the first time the Raiders get your hopes up.
Definitely not.
Knowing them, you right in the heart.
Knowing them, he'll slip to them, and they'll still pass up on him.
So let's go around the room here real quickly. If we had to update our Rodgers predictions right now, because I think we did last week. We did Shedeur, and I had Shedeur going to the Giants. Stu had Shedeur going to the Giants. I think Samter had him going to the Jets. I think that's what it was when we did this. So for Aaron Rodgers, we went around the room right now. Where is he playing football next year? Stu, what's your first guess?
I'll say the Steelers.
You will say the Steelers. Samter?
The New York Football Giants.
Okay. I'm going to say the Steelers, but I could see Samter's being right because here's the thing for Joe Schoen. And you know what? If a deal for the first overall pick gets done, and if it's the Giants trading up to 1, I think it could happen within a week. Because the league year starts next week. That's when it starts. Joe Schoen last year got shut out of getting his guy at the quarterback position. If you look back at the draft, right? They wanted Jaden Daniels, couldn't get Jaden Daniels. They couldn't get Drake May. Caleb went off the board 1, and then they got shut out, and they had to run it back with Daniel Jones. So if you are going to address the quarterback in the draft, you can't just wait this year with your hopes that, a quarterback's going to fall to 3, even though that's a great possibility. So if the Giants are going to get a deal done for the number 1 overall pick, I think it could happen within this week. I really do. With the new league year starting next week. But if they do not get that deal done, you have to, even if it's a veteran like Rodgers, big name, or a Russell Wilson, or a Justin Fields, or a Sam, whoever it is, and some of those moves then can take you out of a quarterback in the draft, you need to then cover your ass, because if not, What are you? Tommy DeVito's the only quarterback on the roster right now. You'd be screwed if free agency happens and you go, you know what, we'll get one in the draft, right? Imagine if the Giants do that. Yeah, we'll get a quarterback in the draft. Don't worry about it. All right, Rodgers, no. Justin Fields, no. Sam Darnold, no. Russell Wilson, no. We don't need any of those guys. We'll get one in the draft. Then imagine quarterbacks go 1-2. Or someone else jumps the Giants and then they can't pull off a deal to go trade for a quarterback, right? So that's why I think there's a good chance a deal for the number 1 overall pick, if Tennessee's going to trade it, can happen within a week. But if it doesn't, the Giants tried for Stafford, they got rejected. So if you tried for Stafford, I then do think that they would put a full court press for Aaron Rodgers. But what could eliminate Aaron Rodgers to the Giants would be if you go trade up to the number 1 pick and then you could just start Cam Ward from day one. And also, if the Giants do bring in Rodgers, they could still draft a quarterback at 3, and then you have Shedeur sit for a year, if Shedeur is going to be the guy. I'm going to say, though, that's the Steelers for Rodgers. And maybe it's more so hoping. But the Giants are desperate. There's no doubt about it. And the Steelers have kind of been like, who cares ever since Big Ben retired at the quarterback position. We'll do a little onside, offside next. It is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Zach's taking on the most polarizing issues in sports. Which side of the line of scrimmage will he end up on?
Offside. Defense number 69.
It's Onsides, Offsides with Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, onside, offside time. Stu, fire away. What do we got cooking?
All right, after weeks of speculation, the Rams and Matthew Stafford agreed to an extension that would keep the Super Bowl champ in Los Angeles. The deal reportedly didn't add any extra years to Stafford's remaining deal, but apparently gave him a, quote, significant raise. Onsides, offsides, you consider the Rams a top 3 team in the NFC now that Stafford is returning.
So they're not better than the Eagles. I would still say they're not better than the Lions. The other team that you have to consider are the Commanders. Outside of that, I think the Rams are better than the Vikings. I think the Rams are better than the Packers. I think the Rams are better than the Bears. I think the Rams are better than the Bucks. And then the 49ers on their bounce back. I think since the Niners missed the playoffs last year, people will rank the Rams in front of them heading into this year. So really this convo to me, though, is between the Rams, the Niners, and then also the Commanders. And I'm going to say, just because there could be a little regression with the Commanders, not knowing how much there will be improvement, but how much improvement there will be from the 49ers, yeah, the Rams are still a top 3 team to me in the NFC. I would rank them in this order. Eagles 1, Lions 2, Rams in at number 3. So you consider the Rams a top 3 team in the NFC now that Stafford is returning. Onside, if he was not returning, they would be all the way down that list. That would be tough to find them. Even though they have a good roster, I'd be very disappointed because I wouldn't trust their playing at the quarterback position. Alrighty, number 2.
Now that Stafford is off of the board, the Giants are left searching for a quarterback and have none under contract as of right now. Now, some reports have linked Aaron Rodgers to the Giants. As
the G-men, as Chris Berman would say.
As he's already in the area playing with the Jets, but others believe that Big Blue might trade up with the Titans at number 1 to draft Cam Ward. Onsides, offsides, the Giants are better off trading up to number 1 than signing Rodgers.
Onsides, and here's why. They're only coming up from 3. So Connor Hughes had this report over the weekend that one NFL general manager, not with Tennessee, not with the Giants, told him that the price probably to move up from 3 to 1 would be Tennessee falling back to 3, right? The Giants moving up to 1. You swap the first round picks, duh. And then probably only 2 additional third round picks. And if there becomes a bidding war, then it may turn into, okay, instead of 2 3s, you give a 3 and then a 2 to really get the ball over the goal line. So would I rather sign Aaron Rodgers, where a year from now you're in the same situation where you need to probably figure out who your quarterback's going to be, or swap ones and then only have to probably give up 2 future third-round picks, and you could potentially get your franchise quarterback of the future in Cam Ward? Yeah, I'd rather do that than bring in an old man Rodgers. So the Giants are better off trading up to number 1 than signing Aaron Rodgers. Yes, because it's not that steep of a climb to get from 3 to 1, so I will go on sides.
The combine is over, and one quarterback is getting panned for his performance. National champion winner Will Howard out of Ohio State was erratic all day long, missing pass after pass and overthrowing multiple receivers. Now, Shedeur Sanders came to his defense, tweeting, quote, I don't understand y'all hating on Will Howard. He just won a natty. It's hard to throw to receivers that you don't know. Everyone runs routes different. End of quote. Onside, offsides, Howard's stock should drop after his combine performance.
This is maybe rude of me. Where was his stock to begin with? I'm sorry. I never viewed him as a first-round quarterback. I never felt comfortable as a second-round, maybe at earliest a third-round quarterback. So when you say, should his stock drop, I think it's like plummets, right? I don't even know what his stock would have been before this. And I follow a ton of college football in the NFL draft. And I think even 3 would be way too generous of me. So I probably viewed this guy as a 5th-round quarterback before the combine. So after the combine, do I go, oh my goodness gracious, now he's going to be undrafted? No. So Howard's stock should drop after his combine performance. I don't get how it could drop if there really wasn't any stock to begin with. So I will go offside.
Offside.
Diana Rossini is a little upset that MVP voting was made public without her knowledge. Rossini voted Lamar first and Josh Allen second, but says that she received angry phone calls and texts once her vote was made public.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Terrible.
Onsides, offsides, all award votes should be made public.
Yeah, I don't understand why people freak out about this. I saw Rob Maddie at the Super Bowl, and he is, I guess, the guy that runs this for the Associated Press, and he's covered the NFL for a long time. He's like, oh, yeah, we got a lot of blowback from reporters. They were annoyed their votes were made public. And I go, did you tell him? He goes, we sent emails out about it. So maybe just people didn't read their emails or they just never got them. You know, it's like Shep's email to the Lakers for LeBron James. I guess it just was never received. But all award votes should be made. Absolutely. And I'm not saying that Diana Rossini, right, can't take a little criticism, but if you don't want your award out there, like, you got to have thick skin here. So then don't vote for it. For example, I could keep my Heisman vote private if I want. They just asked, do not reveal it until the award is announced. I always reveal it right afterwards. And I had Ashton Genty won this year. And people are like, oh, how did you have a drive? If you don't like it, tough. It's my vote. So, yeah, can it get nasty? Can there be some vitriol? Sure, but that's every day on social media. So all award votes should be made public? Absolutely. On sides. I want to know who are the dopey reporter, right, that doesn't vote Ken Griffey Jr. unanimous for the Hall of Fame or Ichiro when it's happened. And I also want to know how people vote for these awards. And if you can't take it, then don't vote for the award. It's that simple. So, yes, all awards should be made public on sides.
The Suns are 28-33 and 4 games out of the 10th.
What a waste, by the way.
Final play-in spot.
They haven't got shredded enough, if I'm being honest. Because there's so much drama with the Suns. We never talk about the fact that they just suck. And that this is a failed experiment. But continue. Sorry, Stu.
No, they've been pretty bad, and they got blown out last night to the Timberwolves. After the game, Kevin Durant, well, he was not very happy.
Yeah, it's tough, man.
Is he ever?
Game, man. We didn't play our standards up to our standards at all. We embarrassed the fans. We embarrassed ourselves the way we played. I want us to be better.
And last week, KD told Draymond why he reportedly vetoed a trade at the deadline that would have moved him back to the Warriors.
I want my career to end on my terms. That's the only thing.
Oh,
but as far as the Warriors, I didn't want to move. And then as a player like me, I cost a lot. Me going into your team in the middle of the season, it's going to be a big blow to any team I'm going to. I get why y'all want to trade me. Simple fact, that's just business. But from me looking at it, I'm just like, it just don't make sense for either side right now to go through that when we just play the season out. And if that's the decision you want to make in the off season, then you figure it out. If I can stop it, then why not? And then the narratives that's going to come with all that I mean, I could play under the noise. It's a simple fact that I didn't feel like it was a need to make that big of a change.
Now, Shams reports that KD and the Suns will work together on an offseason trade to a contender. Onsides, offsides, KD's best option next year is to return to the Warriors.
I said this a year ago. Yes, it's his best option. But that ship could have already sailed because now they have Jimmy Butler. But the reason why Durant wouldn't accept that is because you would have Charles Barkley getting on and inside the NBA on TNT and saying, see, he's a bus rider, not a bus driver. And he had to crawl back to the Golden State Warriors. And KD should just tell everyone to go bleep off. but he can't. That's why he's not on the Warriors. So, yes, the best option next year is to rejoin the Warriors. You know what? Is it the best option? I would like to see it. I'm going to actually say it's not the best option because he could go to a team like the Rockets. He could go to a team, maybe, hey, we're talking about Warriors. What about OKC? I saw Stephen A. threw that out there. I just don't know the shelf life of this Warriors squad anymore because they're getting up there in age. But would I like to see Steph and KD back together? I almost said Steph and Clay. But would I like to see Steph and KD back together? Yes. Is it his best option? A year ago at the deadline, yes. I don't know at the end of the season, though. So I will actually go offside.
Offside. All right, last one after last year's offseason Hard Knocks debacle where the Giants were embarrassed by their failed dealings with Saquon Barkley. No NFL team wanted to be featured on the show this year, so the NFL went outside the box and will now follow NFL GOAT head coach Bill Belichick in his first season at North Carolina. Onside Offside's Hard Knocks following Belichick in UNC is more interesting than any NFL team that they could have picked.
I'm going to say Onsides, and here's why. I think his girlfriend is actually going to make him be more personable on this show. And, right, Bill in the NFL would have been a non-watch because he would give nothing. Maybe he'll give a little bit more in college. So Hard Knocks following Belichick and UNC is more interesting than any NFL team they could have picked. Onsides. Real quickly, Stu, just keep the music going. Give me that last question because I feel like my opinion here could be controversial on this one.
Okay. All right. So it happened. Nobody thought it would, but it did. John Cena, he turned heel.
Everyone's freaking out about this on social media. I didn't watch, but everyone's tweeting about this. It's nuts.
So the fan favorite good guy shocked the wrestling world when he joined forces with The Rock and surprise attacked WWE champ Cody Rhodes.
Pete Pilati's probably crying on line one.
Causing fans.
Let's get Taz on the show. Welcome him back to the network.
Causing fans on social media to lose their minds, like you said. Onsides, offsides, moments like this could get you back to being a WWE fan again.
I know Cena's on like a year-long, I think, retirement tour. I love John Cena as a kid. I met him once. Was my favorite wrestler. Maybe I'll tune in one time during this entire tour whenever the last match is. I don't know what it is, so don't get upset with me for not knowing that. But becoming a WWE fan and watching it religiously, no. And like everyone's freaking out over this. Oh, I can't believe it happened. To me, I get it. It's a script, right? You're a fan of it. I like reality TV. There's things that wrestling fans can like. I'm not going to sit here and laugh at you. I used to be a wrestling fan when I was 12 or 13. But I will say, the one thing I find funny is when the one time I hosted a week of shows with Taz, and I guess Mraz and Taz got into it over Mraz saying wrestling is fake, and they told me don't bring up Mraz to Taz. That's very confusing, Mraz and Taz. And I did anyway. And Taz goes, I actually respect that you brought it up. But I guess there was bad beef with them, and now I find it funny on social media that Mraz has become like a big wrestling fan. He was dressed up as a wrestler a few weeks ago, watching whatever the big pay-per-view was. So a little fraud alert there by our boy Shawnee Mraz. Maybe we could have him tag up and turn heel with Taz. But moments like this can get you back to being a big WWE fan again. No. Last time I was a big WWE fan was 13. I remember when I was a youngster when John Cena beat JBL at WrestleMania. That was awesome. But am I going to sit here and watch? I'll watch one maybe match of John Cena before he retires. But watching like I'm still like Pete Pilati like 24/7, no. That's not going to happen. Alrighty. It is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll give you one loser, one winner from the NFL Draft or for the NFL Combine. When we come on back, update time first. Here's the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
Well, T. Higgins is looking for a big payday, but for now, we'll have to settle for the franchise tag again. The Bengals are using it on their receiver for a second straight year, guaranteeing him over $26 million for this year. They are hopeful of working out a long-term extension. Darius Slay was one part of the best defensive units in the NFL, but today is a cap casualty. The Eagles are reportedly going to release the six-time Pro Bowler's save over $4 million. The 34-year-old Slay would like to continue playing. After 30 years in coaching and 30 more as a broadcaster, Jimmy Johnson is retiring. The 81-year-old won an NCAA championship, 2 Super Bowls, and was an original member of the NFL on Fox when the network obtained the rights. Cooper Flagg hasn't been in Durham long, but he has certainly made an impact in his freshman season. Tonight, most likely his final home game at Cameron Indoor Stadium. The second-ranked Blue Devils host Wake Forest in their home finale. They are a perfect 17-0 on their home floor this year. Auburn remains the number one team in the nation in the latest AP Top 25 poll, while Texas stays on top of the women's poll, and USC is number 2, the highest ranking for the school since 1986. I'm Rich Ackerman.
The Infinity Sports Network is on your smart speaker. All you have to say is, play Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Oh my God, we're back again.
Alrighty, it's time to answer our Ask the Pros question of the day, brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Bella B in Calgary says, "Hi Zach, have you ever gone to an NHL game outdoors? Thanks, Bella B in Calgary. Hashtag Ask the Pros at INS Sports." Then you can submit a question by tweeting at INS Sports or at Zach Gelb, using the hashtag Ask the Pros, just like Bella B did. And you could thank O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. I've never been to an outdoor NHL game. I don't know how the sight lines would be. And sometimes I think that gets a little bit difficult. I know Stu has. How did you? I think it's more for the environment. Yes. I don't know if it's actually enjoyable to watch the game there.
Yeah, it's a weird view. Like the view of a regular hockey game, you can see everything from almost every seat, I feel like. But we went to Devils Flyers last year at MetLife, and we were down kind of low, which you would think is good, but you kind of miss like half of the action.
I think it's like football. You got to be a little bit higher up,
yeah,
right?
And plus it was like 10 degrees out, so it was tough.
I'm going to the Garden tonight for Rangers Islanders. And I actually got asked to go to the Panthers game on Thursday when I was in Florida. I couldn't make it. It was Panthers Oilers, which would have been awesome. I've seen McDavid in person, though, when I was at the Super Bowl. Vegas played the Oilers. So that was pretty cool. But I just saw a few moments ago that the Panthers, Matthew Tkachuk, right, who got injured during the Four Nations, will miss the remainder of the regular season with the groin injury. The team confirmed today. He has missed 4 games since sustaining that injury during the Four Nations face-off, so he'll come back for the postseason, I would assume, and the Panthers have a chance to go back-to-back as Stanley Cup champions, so we'll have to monitor that and see when he actually does return, but he will miss the remainder of the regular season. All righty, before we get on out of here, let's go around the room. One winner, one loser from the NFL Combine. Let's start with the winner, Stu. We'll start off on a positive note with you.
All right, South Carolina safety Nick Emanwari. He's a guy that's
good pronunciation.
He's kind of been in the first round a lot, I've seen, and he had a really good weekend. He measured out at 6'3", a 43-inch vertical jump, and a 4.38 40-yard dash. So
I always find the measurements funny. He measured out there like as if he grew or shrunk in the last 2 months.
Well, you got to have the official ones, and I guess these are the official ones. So, yeah, just what he did, I've seen him close to the top 10 in some mock drafts, too.
Samter, who's your winner from the NFL Combine?
My boy Jalen Milroe, who somehow his hand grew more than half an inch from the Senior Bowl to the Combine.
Maybe the people just didn't measure correctly
his hand size was 8 3/4 inches at the Senior Bowl, which was very small, and then it grew to 9 3/8 inches, and apparently did well in interviews. We heard Vic Tafur earlier say he outperformed Shador in a lot of those interviews.
You know what? I need to call into question the integrity of Jim Nagy's Senior Bowl. I saw he was just named the new GM of the Oklahoma Sooners, so maybe he had 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I like Jim, but if we're messing up the hand measurements at the Senior Bowl, and then all of a sudden the hands are growing from the Senior Bowl to the NFL Combine, please give me a break. You know, like, well, what, did Milroe grow out his fingernails? Is that what he did? What are we doing here? My winner is Matthew Golden, who played at Houston and then this past year just played for the Texas Longhorns, 58 receptions, 987 yards, and 9 touchdowns. But what's the way to rise up draft boards at the Combine? Well, you run a ridiculous 40 time, and he had the fastest 40 time, not as quick as Xavier Worthy last year, another Texas wide receiver, but he had the fastest 40 time for a wide receiver this year at 4.29. So Matthew Golden is my winner. Let's do losers. Stu, we start off with you. I'm not calling you a loser. I'm just asking who is your combine loser.
Yeah, I hate to do this, but Will Campbell from LSU.
The short arms?
Robert Gallery Jr., some might call him.
Oh, stop it. He could be a Patriot. I don't want to hear that nonsense.
The shortest wingspan of any tackle prospect since the 2011 draft. 32 and 5/8 inch arms. The wingspan was only 77 and 3/8 inches. That worries me. That sounds like Robert Gallery, a guy you're going to have to move to guard at some point. I don't know if that's a top 5 pick.
So Chris in California defended Kenny Pickett because of the small hands. Maybe he will start to defend Will Campbell because of the short little alligator arms. If that's the case, come on, what are we doing here? No one ever questioned that arm size or freaked out about the arm size when he played at LSU. Now it's a whole big thing. I've been seeing that the last few weeks. Samter, who's your loser?
I'm going to go with the teammate of your winner, Isaiah Bond, who before he ran the 40 says, I'm going to break the 40 record tomorrow. I'm feeling great. I might run a 4.1. He ran a 4.39. He didn't even get close.
Terrible.
No,
travesty.
If you're going to claim that you're going to break the record of 4.21 and then you run a 4.39 and then your teammate beats you and runs a faster 40 than you lose.
At the Heisman Trophy ceremony, I thought there was a chance that Dylan Gabriel could be the third quarterback off the draft board, and Dan Orlovsky agreed with me. He thought he could be a first-round pick. I haven't seen anything really positive about Dylan Gabriel in this draft process. Jackson Dart, who did not play all that great this year, especially against Kentucky and Florida. Now he's being talked about as a first-round pick. Tyler Shuck is even rising up the draft board. Oh, shucks. And where the heck is Dylan Gabriel? I read a ranking today that had him like the 8th or 9th quarterback here. Jalen Milroe, positive things being said about him. But nothing on Dylan Gabriel, so therefore he is my loser of this whole process. All righty, fun show today. Big thanks to Michael Chandler. Big thanks to Lindsay Rhodes. Stu, Samter, give you $1,000 each if we get LeBron James on this show. All right? If you just got into your car, you have no clue what the heck I'm talking about. Anyway, we'll talk to you tomorrow, everybody. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.